Chapter 1259. No one would have thought that the reward for this set of soul bones had such an extraordinary origin. The relationship between humans and soul beasts had only changed slightly during the Fifth Soul Beast World War. After that, as humans recovered, soul masters slowly developed. Apart from the extreme north, humans still had to kill soul beasts. During that war, humans and soul beasts worked together to fight against the evil soul beasts. But no matter what, the 100,000-year soul beasts that died in the war against human soul masters were sacrificed to the humans of that time, and some of them were preserved as soul bones as mementos. Many people knew about this, but only those who were familiar with history knew about it. These soul bones held great significance, as if they bore witness to that period of history. They were true cultural relics. After hearing the Douluo explain the origins of this set of soul bones, everyone was stunned. They were stunned. Why would the Douluo take out these soul bones that represented history as a reward? Wasn't this an insult to the 100,000-year soul beasts that fought alongside humans? This was especially so for the silver-haired woman who was hiding in the crowd. Damn it! There was a man and a woman behind the silver-haired woman. The man was dressed in black, and he was tall and sturdy. When he heard what the Douluo said, his killing intent surged. This is a provocation. Master, these humans are definitely trying to provoke us. The man transmitted his voice with his spiritual power. His voice was cold. Back then, my master and I were both in hibernation to recover and cultivate. Although we didn't know much about the outside world, I still know about this matter. Back then, humans and soul beasts worked together to defend this continent against the tide of evil soul beasts. Although it was only a temporary alliance, we soul beasts definitely didn't stab them in the back. Although Master and I couldn't wake up, I secretly instructed many soul beasts to work together with the humans. I didn't expect them to take out the soul bones that the soul beasts that died back then. The man's voice was a little irritable, but he was very calm. He just watched quietly. However, it was clear that any soul beast would find it hard to accept such a thing. Brother Tian, calm down. I don't think things are that simple. The woman beside him seemed to sense the man's abnormal spiritual undulations. She transmitted her voice to him. If humans really wanted to target us soul beasts, then the Soul Beast Protection Act wouldn't exist. Although humans are still killing soul beasts, the Soul Beast Protection Act is a barrier for us soul beasts. The Douluo is most likely doing this for some reason. The woman wore a green dress and gave Di Tian a few glances. Di Tian snorted coldly. His aura was so strong that the soul cultivators around him couldn't help but retreat. The silver-haired woman stared at the Douluo in front of the Hongyu Soul battle platform in the distance, but she didn't reply. It had been a few days since they arrived in human society. With their cultivation, they were able to disguise themselves very well. Even a titled Douluo wouldn't be able to discover them. He had also witnessed the current human society and felt that it was very novel. He had also heard about this pinnacle competition. Even though he had other motives, he still remembered that this tournament had gathered all the top soul masters in the continent. In that case, the man from the five-colored sacred mountain would definitely participate in the competition. If that was the case, then there was no need to look for him at all. He could directly participate in this competition, and they would definitely meet each other. The reason why she did that is likely because she wanted to use it as a warning. Be on guard against the new soul demons and the dark demon realm that has yet to be told to humans. The silver-haired woman pondered for a few seconds and said, "Those soul bones are very important. Furthermore, they were preserved from fighting against the evil soul beasts back then." She did that to let everyone understand this. Di Tian was slightly stunned, but he immediately reacted. The dark demon realm is far more dangerous than human soul masters, soul engineers from the Sun Moon Empire, and soul beasts. She used such a reward, gathered so many top soul masters, and used this set of soul bones as a warning. She must want these top soul masters to understand this so that they can fight against the soul demons together. The silver-haired woman's expression was indifferent, and her eyes flickered. The woman's eyes lit up when she heard this. Brother Tian, I told you that there's something fishy about this. Tian was silent for a few seconds before he snorted coldly. Even so, she can't use those soul bones as a reward. In fact, like the silver-haired woman, many of the top soul masters participating in the tournament could vaguely guess what was going on. Those who could participate in the pinnacle competition were mostly experienced and older soul masters. In addition to the recent series of actions by the Federation, especially the sealing of many soul beast forests and the increasingly violent evil soul beasts, they could all guess what was going on. On the stage, the Douluo's expression was solemn as he spoke. After those soul beasts died, they left behind some information for the humans who picked up these soul bones. If the calamity doesn't end, these soul bones can be used by human soul masters without any backlash. If the calamity is over, humans will have to pay a huge price if they want to absorb these soul bones. As he spoke, the Douluo pointed into the air. Instantly, 6 different lights shot out from the Douluo's wrist. They were 6 dazzling soul bones. They were like armor as they floated in mid-air and exuded a ferocious aura. The majestic aura and the flickering golden light showed how powerful this set of soul bones was. A set of 100,000-year soul bones. Furthermore, they came from 2 soul beasts, so they were very complete. It's the Skyfall Tyrant Tiger and the Sea Protector Holy Lion. The head and the left and right arm bones belong to the Skyfall Tyrant Tiger. The torso and the left and right leg bones belong to the Holy Lion. These 200,000-year soul beasts are not simple. Wang Feng focused his gaze. He could tell from their names. In the history of soul beasts, these 2 soul beasts were very strong. Compared to his subordinates, he wasn't much inferior. If his underlings hadn't met him back then, they wouldn't have been as strong as these 2 soul beasts apart from the cowardly Kuan. The rewards are very generous, Wang Fengxin said. Just a reward of this level, coupled with his words, was enough to move many soul masters. Even if they didn't guess it earlier, they roughly understood now. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar. Then, a thunderous sound rang out. It was Heavenly King Yu fanning the void and creating a sonic boom. Everyone quietened down. Alright, everyone. The summit competition this time is very important. I hope that everyone can perform well. As a rank 99 titled Douluo, Heavenly King Yu's martial soul was an angel. He was a descendant of an angel, but not a 6-winged angel. Next, the tournament will begin. Heavenly King Yu waved his hand. Dazzling fireworks shot out from the soul tools around the plaza and filled the entire sky. It was a magnificent sight. The competition in the morning was for the youth group. There were a total of 36 small teams from 12 different regions. The 12 regions were from different regions in the 3 political regions. Coincidentally, the first round of the tournament also included Hu Yuhao's team. Apart from them, there were 4 other teams. They only had 3 matches. There weren't that many matches. These 3 teams didn't even use 1/10 of the Hongyu Soul Fighting Arena. On the first day of the summit tournament, there were close to 1,000 matches. However, they all started at the same time. The battles took place in an area of several 100,000 square meters, including in the sky. This was because most soul masters in the summit tournament could fly freely in the sky. If they had flying-type martial souls, most of them would compete in midair. They could easily fly dozens of meters in the air. Hence, the area was very spacious. The youth group's competition restricted the use of soul tools below Class 5. The summit tournament restricted the use of soul tools below Class 7. Class 8 soul tools were too powerful. Even if the Hongyu Soul Fighting Arena could support them, the surrounding buildings couldn't. However, there weren't many soul engineers in the Federation. They couldn't use Class 8 soul tools either. Basically, soul masters were the main force. The youth group represented the hope of the younger generation in the world of soul masters. This year's Shrek team had some tricks up their sleeves. Shrek's team, led by Ma Xiaodao, ranged from rank 60 to rank 30. They had all sorts of strange teams and were all soul charmers. They were also the only team formed by soul charmers. There were many things to watch. Their opponent was a team from the Star Luo political district that was ranked second in their district. Actually, Wang Feng didn't have much doubt about how far Huiyuhao's team could go. They would definitely win the championship, and there wouldn't be much suspense. The reason was simple. Soul charmers each had at least one soul-bonded beast. Soul-bonded beasts also had their own soul skills. On average, they had one more soul skill than any other team. How were they going to fight? This wasn't even mentioning the strength of the soul-bonded beast. Even if it was 3 against 7, they had a high chance of winning, let alone 7 against 7. Furthermore, Huiyuhao, Wang Dong, He Kaitu, and Xiao Xiao had chosen their own soul-bonded beasts. They were very suitable for them. There was no need to talk about their abilities. Wang Feng didn't know what soul-bonded beasts Bei Bei and Su Sancher had. However, the Academy wouldn't randomly give them a soul-bonded beast. The Federation doesn't have any special rules regarding soul-bonded beasts. Obviously, they're secretly supporting them. Wang Feng couldn't help but think, they probably want to use this to spread the name of soul charmers across the continent. Otherwise, it's unfair for soul charmers to fight soul charmers. It's fine if it's just 1 or 2 matches. Huiyuhao's team won first place in their region without any restrictions. This is enough to prove this point. In other words, this was what the Federation was secretly encouraging. If you can't beat them, join them. It was hard to say what would happen in the next youth tournament. However, this year's tournament was definitely going to be a tournament where the soul charlatans, led by Huiyuhao and the rest, would shine brightly. In fact, this was the case. Wang Feng watched quietly. Only 4 people were going up. They were Huiyuhao, Wang Dong, Xiao Xiao, and Su Sancher. Wang Feng looked from afar and realized that less than a year had passed. However, they had all grown up a lot. Only 4 people are going up. These fellows seem to have some sense of fairness. Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. The 7 people on the other side were all above rank 40 on average. However, among them, only Su Sancher had broken through to rank 40. The rest were still around rank 30. Huiyuhao hadn't even reached rank 30 yet. Aren't they a little too arrogant? Long asked curiously. Although soul charmers are special and have the help of soul-bonded beasts, this is the final round, not the group stage. Only 4 people are going up? They're probably thinking that with the addition of their soul-bonded beasts, it should be 8 against 7, right? Wang Feng said, 8 against 7. Although their soul power ranks aren't too different, 1 more person should be fair. That's true. Let me see how strong these soul charmers are. Oh yes, I've seen 1 or 2 recordings of their battles in the luster projection soul tool. It seems like this is the most number of people they've ever sent out. Long seemed to recall something and was speechless. In other words, in the group stage, Shrek's team usually sent out 3 people. Wang Feng smiled and looked over as well. 4 people dared to play like this in the final round. It wasn't simple. At least, there were countless pairs of eyes watching them. Soul charmers were a new profession. They had made a name for themselves in the group stage. Now, they were in Martial Spirit City, in the Hongyu Soul Dueling Arena. They were facing the strongest Soul Masters and the strongest Soul Master teams from all over the Federation. They knew what this meant. Soon, the battle began. The battle ended very quickly. According to Wang Feng's calculations, the battle took less than 10 minutes. What surprised Wang Feng was that these little fellows seemed to have figured out a set of fighting methods for soul renters. Simply put, there was one word: style. Because soul charmers had the help of soul-bonded beasts, the calculation of soul skills and the changes in their attributes would be much more complex. This meant that there would be a huge change in their fighting style compared to before. After the battle began, Wang Feng saw it very clearly. Huo Yuhao's method of fighting was rather interesting. It was a special positional fighting style. With Wang Dong's flaming sunflower as the core, it took root in the center and emitted a special heat, giving its surroundings a special boost. Afterwards, Huo Yuhao summoned his jade shell crystal monster. This kind of rare soul beast was a defense-type soul beast. Its strongest point was that it could reflect the opponent's attack. The angle of this reflection was extremely tricky. Different angles of attack could reflect different angles of attack, making it impossible for the opponent to guard against it. Huo Yuhao made the jade shell crystal monster stand in front of the four of them and erect a huge shield. The flaming sunflower was used to supplement the energy and increase the reflected attack. In addition to the defense of Su Sanqi's Xuanwu, it was unbreakable. The most interesting thing was that Su Sanqi's martial soul was an offense-type defense-type soul beast, the thorny tortoise. Wang Feng was very familiar with this soul beast. The Xianming thorny tortoise had dropped a Xianming armor soul bone. This strangle thorn veil was a weakened version of the Xianming thorny tortoise. It was a soul beast that sacrificed its defense to grow countless thorns on its body. The soul skill that this thorny tortoise used turned into a special thorny tortoise shield. Therefore, with the three soul beasts as the core and Su Sanqi as the core, they formed three unbreakable shields. They wrapped the three of them tightly. At the same time, Wang Dong had powerful long-range attacking abilities. In addition, Xiao Zhao's Vajra Dragonhawk also had powerful attacking abilities. This resulted in this special fighting style. The four of them advanced slowly like a moving fortress. It was very difficult for any attack to hurt them. On the contrary, they could reflect attacks from multiple angles, add on their powerful defensive abilities, Xiao Zhao's restriction assistance, and Huo Yuhao's spiritual perception. The 7 people in front of them had no way of attacking. They could only be slowly closed in and defeated. End of chapter. Chapter 1260. Evidently, Huo Yuhao and the other three's fighting style was very methodical. It was even a little like a school of thought. Their 7 opponents weren't weak at all. There were 2 assault-type soul masters, 2 agility-type soul masters, 1 support, and 2 control-type soul masters in their 7-man team. Their average rank was above rank 40, and their soul power far exceeded the 4 of them. However, they couldn't do anything to them. If they couldn't break through their defenses, it would be very difficult to hurt them. Wang Dong's long-range attacks were very ordinary. Furthermore, the flaming sunflower's amplification effect allowed him to attack, defend, and long-range attack. This was especially true for the diamond dragonhawk, which was an extremely rare soul beast. Although Xiao Zhao's diamond dragonhawk had just broken through to the 1,000-year level, it wasn't inferior to 4 to 5,000-year soul beasts. It was the main attacker in this style of fighting. In addition, it had powerful flying abilities. It was very annoying. What made Wang Feng even more astonished was that the diamond dragonhawk could even change its attacking posture following Xiao Zhao's flute. Evidently, it was a special attacking method that had been formed after tacit training. This meant that they had a sufficient understanding of their soul-bonding beast. Their attacking methods were no longer limited to soul skills. This was undoubtedly good. Of course, Wang Feng didn't really think that there was no other way. If there was really no other way, they could just not attack and drag it out. They could rely on the difference in their soul power ranks to drag it out until their soul power was depleted. This was the stupidest method. It was also the most effective method. This was because Wang Feng could tell that this style of fighting was very draining on their soul power. Simply put, they had to maintain this formation and not mess it up. This would drain a lot of their soul power, especially Huo Yuhao. This was especially true for Huo Yuhao, whose soul power rank was relatively low. As long as they dragged it out, there would be a moment when they would change their formation. That would be the time to attack. However, this style of fighting, as well as a soul-bonding master, was too rare. The other party did not have sufficient preparation at all, and was flustered by their fighting style in an instant, panicking into a ball. How could they execute such a method in an orderly manner? They might not even be able to think of the right thing to do. They would only think of it when they went to review the situation later on. Actually, this style of fighting should be perfect when paired with Hikaitu. Wang Feng pondered. Hikaitu was a soul engineer, and a soul engineer who possessed a special soul tool. If Xiao Xiao was replaced by Hikaitu, the offensive capabilities of this faction would be greatly enhanced. With Hikaita's amethyst rhinoceros and his powerful long-range soul tools, the soul dueling stage would be attacked from all angles. Even if he wanted to drag it out, he couldn't. These guys must have thought of it. They might be using it as a trump card. Wang Feng suddenly thought. As long as one was a bystander, they would be able to see the flaws in this fighting style. In that case, there would definitely be other battles that weren't participating in the tournament that would be studied and deciphered. At that time, once they used this trump card, it would be able to play an unexpected role, make the opponent tired of dealing with it. Is this how a soul renderer fights? Very impressive. Long clicked his tongue in wonder as he watched from the side. With the addition of soul beasts, the changes to soul masters are too great. This was especially true for a 7-man team. The Cloud Vault Academy wasn't good enough. Even though this strategy was powerful, if they really couldn't deal with it, couldn't they just avoid the battle and drag it out? Yet, they still chose to fight head-on. They're too immature. He was a teacher, so he could naturally see the flaws in this fighting style at a glance. However, he was also shocked by the power of a soul renderer. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't know. An additional soul renderer isn't just a few more soul skills. It's an additional change that is hard to calculate. Naikong also sighed. The reason why the Federation hasn't changed any strategy to target soul renderers is because the Federation knows very little about them. However, it's also because of this that soul renderers are in this year's tournament, let alone the Pinnacle tournament. At least in the youth group, there aren't many teams that can compete with them. In the next tournament, the Federation will make some restrictions on soul renderers. This will at least make the tournament fair on the surface. Both of them were higher-ups in the academy and had taught many students. They were also soul sages, so they naturally saw through the battle in front of them. How can there be true fairness in the tournament? No matter how many restrictions there are, a soul renderer is still much stronger than a soul master. Long retorted bluntly. I dare guarantee that in the next youth group tournament, at least 70% of the teams will be soul renderers. 5 years is enough for the various big academies, sects, and families to nurture their first batch of new soul renderers. Actually, there was no need for 5 years, 2 or 3 years would be enough. After 10 years, soul masters might gradually disappear. After 100 years, soul masters might become history. Wang Feng smiled but didn't say anything. Ikong raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "Do I need you to say more? I can recite the 3 great cores of a soul renderer like the back of my hand. It's just that the power of tradition is too strong now. So many children don't understand how to become a soul renderer. Their parents only support their children to become soul masters. Just like how many people thought that soul engineers weren't proper back then, having a soul beast as a partner was the hardest to accept. A few days ago, a soul renderer was killed by his own soul renderer. Although the Federation has already refuted the rumors, in reality, who can guarantee that this is absolutely impossible? The 3 great cores were brought up by Wang Feng when he was teaching at the Shrek Academy. It was recorded in the Light Shadow Soul tool. It had already spread to many places. There were also 3 key points, an ultimate rule, and so on. Wang Feng shook his head. What Ikong said made sense. No one could guarantee it. Even if the rumors were refuted, Wang Feng couldn't guarantee that the soul renderer wouldn't be killed by his own soul renderer. For example, the father and daughter, even if there were evil soul masters secretly causing trouble, it was still the soul renderer who was killed by the soul renderer. This was something that couldn't be changed. When Long heard this, she immediately quarreled with Ikong again. For a moment, no one could convince the other. Perhaps only time could convince the two of them. On the other side, Brother Tian, look, when you came, you didn't believe that humans and soul beasts could really become partners. Now that you've seen it, you shouldn't have any doubts anymore, right? The lady in the green dress was a little surprised, but also a little happy as she watched the battle on the stage. I heard that this is the new soul renderer among humans. Tian frowned slightly, looked at the situation on the stage, and snorted coldly. How can humans really accept peaceful coexistence with soul beasts? Although it was a rebuttal, it was obviously a little powerless. Why not? The lady in the green dress looked at the silver-haired lady in front of her. We've all heard that this soul renderer is a special contract between humans and soul beasts. There's no master and servant. This is peaceful coexistence. Brother Tian, you still don't believe it. Master, what do you think? Tian didn't say anything. He just watched quietly. The silver-haired lady pondered for a few seconds and said, "There's a special binding force on these people. It's a very novel power. It links humans and soul beasts together, making both parties unable to violate this contract. This is indeed a very safe method, but who would create such a special contract to ease the relationship between humans and soul beasts? Furthermore, the appearance of this soul renderer is obviously not just to ease the relationship, but to change the relationship between the two parties. To do such a thing, and at such a time, it's really ingenious. At such a time. Naturally, it was a special time when the God realm couldn't sense the Douluo world. Could it be him? The silver-haired lady suddenly thought of the mysterious man inside the five-colored divine mountain. He walked out of the divine mountain and walked into human society, his background unknown. But a person who could be sealed by the five divine kings couldn't be simple. Unfortunately, although she had communicated with him many times, she didn't know who he was. He didn't know who she was either. Him. The lady in the green dress was surprised. Master, why do you think so? If it's him, why would he help us soul beasts? He's a proper human. The silver dragon thought for a while and said, because it's familiar. This binding force is a little familiar. I seem to have sensed this force in the great star Do forest. It seemed to be when he had just left. The lady in the green dress was enlightened. What kind of existence was Master? Once she woke up, nothing that happened in the great star Do forest could escape her senses. But why would he do that? Let's go and find out about the soul renderer later. The competition for the youth division ended very quickly. It was noon. The sky was clear and the clouds were flawless. But no one left the Swan Feather Plaza. Because the next competition was the Apex Group competition. It was also a competition that countless people had been looking forward to. The Apex Group competition, regardless of whether it was the early, middle, or late stages, was undoubtedly very exciting. In the early stages, hundreds of matches would begin at the same time. Endless battles filled the entire sky. That was a battle between soul masters. Furthermore, it was a battle between high-level soul masters. It wasn't a small fight between a few people. After Huoyu Hao and the rest won the competition, their faces were filled with joy. But after returning to the resting room backstage and resting for a while, they immediately rushed back to the spectator stand. Look at the few of you. How anxious are you? The leader of Shrek's team was called Wang Yen. Seeing the few of them in a hurry, he immediately said unhappily, "It's not my fault." Xiao Xiao immediately pushed the blame. "It's all Nanan's fault. She was the one who pulled me in a hurry and said that she wanted to see Teacher Wang. I couldn't even tie up my hair properly." Jiang Nanan's face turned red. She retorted helplessly, When did I say that? I only said that I wanted to find a good seat. There are many people participating in the first round of the Apex group. Finding a good seat will give us a clearer view. You were the one who said that. Senior Wang is back? At this moment, the rest of the team members couldn't help but ask curiously. Master is back. Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong walked over together and laughed as they said, Senior Lishuan informed us in advance, and we only just found out. Not only are you back, but I also heard that you're participating in the Apex Group tournament. But I remember that Senior Wang's soul power rank shouldn't be very high. How did he participate? Bei was astonished. Could it be, I think that the Federation specially approved it. Su Sancher looked at the spectators stand. I heard that this year's Apex Group competition is unprecedentedly strong. This set of soul bones has attracted countless powerful soul masters. You all know about the Sea God's Island, right? That's the place where Tang San's ancestor became a god. Usually, they won't leave the island unless there are special circumstances. At this point, Su Sancher paused. But this time, the Sea God's Island seems to have been invited. Furthermore, it's the new high priest of the Sea God. Su Sanchi's soul power rank was the highest among them. He had also stayed in the academy the longest. The only ones who could compare to him were Bei and Tangya. He knew a lot more than the rest. After hearing this, everyone exclaimed in unison. The high priest of the Sea God was one of the Federation's 3 honorary heavenly kings. The Sea God's Island was very important to the Federation. Then teacher, Wang Dong hesitated. I don't know how far he can go. I heard that the first 3 rounds of the Apex Group competition are enough to eliminate 70% of the participants. The later rounds are even crazier. The last few rounds are all titled Douluo's battles. The High Priest of the Sea God's Island is probably on par with my eldest and second uncles. Cough. He should be at least rank 96 or 97, right? Not only that, Wang Yen shook his head. The High Priest of the Sea God's Island is very respected. He's someone who can be compared to our Academy's Elder Mu, that means he's 99%. Everyone clicked their tongues. Teacher can't possibly be eliminated in the first 3 rounds, right? Xiao Xiao said mischievously. Impossible. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. A fiery red figure walked in front of everyone. On her shoulder was an ice-colored fox that was the size of a kitten. 2 completely opposite colors and auras gave off a contradictory sense of beauty. It was the captain of this team, Ma Xiaotao. Ma Xiaotao walked in front of Xiao Xiao and knocked her on the head. Xiao Xiao immediately pouted and covered her forehead with her hands. Sister Xiaotao, why did you hit me? Your little brain is still not enlightened. Let me take a look at it for you and enlighten it. Ma Xiaotao glared at Xiao Xiao. Teacher was able to return from a dangerous place like the extreme north and even brought back this ice fox for me. He went there with a group of people from the inspection department. Do you think he can return from the extreme north without being strong enough? In fact, they still didn't know what exactly had happened in the extreme north. Even the matter of the 3 Douluo heavenly kings forming a team to head to the extreme north was not known to the public. Only Elder Mu and a few others knew about it. Naturally, they wouldn't regret it. Oh, that's true. Xiao Xiao thought for a moment and looked at the ice fox. She rubbed her head and immediately felt comfortable. Little fox, you were brought back by teacher. Do you think teacher is powerful? The ice fox yawned lazily and turned its head. It used its tail to sweep Xiao Xiao's hand and arrogantly ignored her. This ice fox cultivated the power of extreme ice. In the extreme north, it had a bright future. Later on, it was infected and turned into an evil soul beast in the extreme ice forbidden land and was saved by Wang Feng and Lin Lord Bingmu. If not for that, why would it choose to become a human's soul-bonded beast? Although the Iron Fox of the 8 Overlords, who was also the superior of her tribe, agreed to it. Sister Xiaotao, it's not answering me. Xiao Xiao said angrily. Don't you care about your soul-bonded beast? It doesn't fit in at all. This is a 10,000-year soul-bonded beast. Wang Yan reminded, Xiao Xiao, do you want it to play with a group of 100-year and 1,000-year soul beasts in a few months? Everyone laughed. The ice fox had the right to be arrogant. She told me before. It was teacher who saved them. From her tone, teacher is very powerful. Ma Xiaotao gently stroked the ice fox's head. He won't be weaker than anyone. Just as she finished speaking. At this moment, the sound of a bell reverberated through the heavens and earth. In an instant, countless soul masters flew out from all directions of the Swan Feather Plaza. They flew into the sky and towards the Swan Feather Soul dueling stage in the center. The first round of the summit tournament had begun. End of chapter. Chapter 1261. After pasting a number on himself, Wang Feng followed the little Kuan shark onto the Hongyu Soul dueling arena. As it was an individual competition, every participant naturally had a number. Before the competition started, their opponents had already been drawn. Wang Feng's first opponent was number 520. It had to be said that this wasn't a good number, especially when he saw that this number belonged to a man. As the competition started, there were no referees. After defeating the opponent, one only needed to obtain the opponent's number. After that, the Federation officials would cancel this number, which was equivalent to elimination. With so many Douluo heavenly kings present, even if there were thousands of battles at the same time, it would be difficult to hide any small movements from them. Especially since this was the Hongyu Soul dueling arena. With the Star Spirit Heavenly King here, with her dual-sided martial soul, the Star Spirit eyes, her spiritual power could cover the entire Hongyu Soul dueling arena. Unless one had powerful concealment methods, she would be able to see more than half of the battles clearly. However, in a battle, no powerful concealment methods could be held back. Especially in the later battles. Although the other Douluo heavenly kings didn't have spiritual power, it was impossible for them to make any small movements under their eyes. Qin Fujian, a rank 77 Tool Soul Master from the Heavenly River clan in the Federation. Brother, what about you? This number 520 was about 37 or 38 years old. He was considered relatively young. He had an imposing appearance and was extremely arrogant. With one look, one could tell that he wasn't simple. Those who dared to participate in the peak group competition were more or less very confident in their own abilities. The Heavenly River clan was a special power in the Federation. It was a group of soul masters formed by a group of powerful families. They called themselves the clan. The Heavenly River clan was a place worth mentioning. Wang Feng glanced at him. Before he could speak, Qin Fujian raised his eyebrows and said, Wait, you're a soul contract master? What soul beast is this? Why haven't I seen it before? He was talking about the little Kuan shark flying beside Wang Feng. At this moment, other high-level soul masters had already started their battles. In an instant, countless soul power undulations surged from all directions like a tsunami. In an instant, the entire Hongyu Soul dueling arena seemed to have sunk into a ball of colorful brocade. Countless figures swept across the sky. It set off endless waves of usage. While the scene seemed chaotic, it was also extremely spectacular. In fact, this was the scene of the war all those years ago. In fact, it was even slightly inferior. The Apex Group Tournament was held once every 20 years, and it could be said that this was the first time many young soul masters were witnessing this tournament. For a moment, his mind was shaken, and an outline of the future appeared in his mind. Almost every 10 seconds, there would be a series of screams accompanied by figures who were shot down or sent flying off the arena, falling to the ground. The healing-type soul masters from the Federation, who were already on standby, immediately went up to treat him. The vast majority of soul masters could be healed immediately if they were injured. Furthermore, the life force of a high-grade soul master was very strong, so it wouldn't be that easy for him to die. In such a chaotic situation, the Apex Group tournament taught many Soul Masters a lesson on how to defeat their enemies. This was because a battle between high-grade Soul Masters was different from a well-trained army. Regardless of whether it was the enemy or oneself, the battlefield would often be extremely chaotic. This was especially true for the soul power undulations produced by high-tier soul skills. Normal armies didn't possess such soul power undulations, and they would greatly disrupt the battlefield. However, high-grade soul masters were often the decisive factor in a war. They were very destructive, covered a wide area, and posed a great threat. How to unleash one's strength in such a battle was especially important. In a battle of such a level, soul masters below rank 70 would find it difficult to use their martial souls in such chaotic soul power undulations, let alone use soul skills normally. Especially after releasing their martial soul true bodies, the soul power undulations would form a soul power pressure. Low-grade soul masters would be courting death if they entered the battlefield. When 520 said this, Wang Feng felt the pressure brought about by such a situation. Of course, Wang Feng found out from the little Kuan shark's body. Wang Feng didn't feel much pressure, but the little Kuan shark, as a 1,000-year soul beast, felt extremely pressured. It was also a little excited. Your soul-bonded beast seems to only be a 1,000-year soul master. Qin Fujian looked at the little Kuan shark in surprise. It seemed to be able to adapt to such an environment and didn't show any signs of discomfort. It doesn't seem very powerful. Since that's the case, I can't look forward to it. I'll be taking your number. With that, Qin Fujian revealed his martial soul. At the same time, his breathing was like thunder, and his body let out a thunderous sound. Martial soul, collapsing mountain pillar. Qin Fujian's 7 soul rings lit up. They were a standard combination of 2 purple and 5 black soul rings. However, his martial soul was very special. It was a mountain pillar that was engraved with purple mountain patterns. In its normal form, it was at least 3 meters long. It was half a meter long. It looked like a totem, but it was sucked into Qin Fujian's palm. With a thud, it landed on the stage and let out a muffled sound. However, in terms of martial souls, this martial soul was naturally superior. Its aura was also very strong. Although it was very long and thick, it didn't seem cumbersome. When it was sucked into Qin Fujian's hand, it felt as if it was one with him. Rank 70 was a turning point for Tool souls. This was something that everyone knew. In fact, Tool souls had been developed very quickly over the past 10,000 years. Apart from the turning point of rank 70, many genius soul masters had also developed powerful and special techniques and technique. These techniques were passed down from generation to generation. A more representative technique was the sword Douluo's 7 killings sword technique. It was a technique that was created according to the characteristics of one's martial soul. Over the past 10,000 years, there were many people whose talent and martial souls were stronger than the sword Douluo's. Apart from sword-type martial souls, all the other tool martial souls had their own experts who had created powerful and practical moves. This allowed tool soul masters to not be inferior to battle soul masters before they reached rank 70. But later on, soul masters created cultivation techniques that were suitable for their beast souls. They merged the cultivation techniques and beast souls into one, allowing beast souls to be stronger than tool soul masters again. Speaking of which, in the past 10,000 years, beast souls and tool souls were the 2 most controversial historical problems in the world of soul masters. No one could tell which was stronger and which was weaker. But as a soul master, what kind of soul master was he if he couldn't differentiate between the 2? Among the various tool souls, pillar-type martial souls were especially special. A simple record of this martial soul flashed through Wang Feng's mind. This was a very powerful tool martial spirit. The power of this martial soul lay in the fact that it was a martial soul with powerful offensive abilities. But at the same time, it was a martial soul with auxiliary abilities. The Fu Shan pillar was a martial soul that had been passed down for a long time. Thousands of years ago, after the Federation had experienced several soul-beast wars and stabilized, they began to explore other unknown territories on the continent. Later on, they discovered an ancient tribal race. They were located in the mountains to the east of the federal government district. When they were first discovered, this tribe was very backward and called themselves the Fu Shan tribe. Martial souls were represented by pillars, but their pillar-type martial souls were all used for auxiliary purposes in the beginning. It increased various statuses: recovery, healing, enhancement, acceleration, and so on. Their combat ability was weak. Later on, they were incorporated by the Federation, and this tribe walked out of Fu Shan. After joining the Federation, the world of soul masters in the Federation changed. They learned more advanced martial soul theories and knowledge, and began to develop their own martial souls. They changed from auxiliary to offensive. In other words, they began to use their Fu Shan pillar martial soul to attack the enemy. And it felt good to use it. In the beginning, there were many Fu Shan tribe members who thought that this was blasphemy against the Fu Shan totem. This was because the totem they believed in originated from an ancient god. Wang Feng discovered that this god no longer had a divine position in the god realm. Thus it fell. Later on, those who objected, after being forced to use their Fu Shan pillar martial soul to attack the enemy, found that it felt extremely wonderful. It was as if a new continent had been opened. Thus, they no longer objected. Gradually, the Fu Shan pillar martial soul developed into a powerful martial soul that was both offensive and auxiliary. It was also developed into many powerful moves. It was extremely powerful. The development of martial souls in these 10,000 years was definitely not stagnant. The Federation's integration of the entire continent was not just for show. In the entire continent, other than the two empires, there were still many mysterious places that had not been explored. In these 10,000 years, they had been exploring the regions of this continent. They had discovered many special life forms and tribes. Most of them were slowly formed and developed not long after the birth of soul masters in the ancient era. Later on, they split and formed. Then, after the changes of time, some had been completely extinct, and some had continued. The Federation had found most of them and incorporated them. They had continued these rare martial souls, which was how the powerful Federation was today. After going through this martial soul in his mind, Wang Feng couldn't help but feel curious. Fu Shan's secret, flying rain speed. Qin Fujian didn't know that Wang Feng wasn't thinking about how to deal with him. Instead, he was thinking about the history of his family's martial soul. His soul rings didn't change, but he muttered a strange language. It seemed to be the secret language of his family. At the same time, Wang Feng's eyes glowed. He could clearly sense that Qin Fujian's soul power was circulating in a special way. It then flowed into the Fu Shan pillar in his hand. In an instant, the mountain rock pillar immediately glowed with an intense light. The light scattered on Qin Fujian's body. In the next moment, Qin Fujian suddenly charged towards Wang Feng. In an instant, Qin Fujian's speed increased by several times. It was extremely terrifying. This was because he was holding a 3-meter-long stone pillar in his hand. It had a diameter of half a meter. This stone pillar was much larger than Qin Fujian himself. However, its speed was so fast. It wasn't inferior to the speed of an agility-type soul master. With the instantaneous burst of power, the stone pillar looked like it would sweep Wang Feng off the arena. Wang Feng squinted his eyes. The small Kuan shark immediately roared, and its body suddenly swelled. It directly used its 100-year soul skill, Deep Root. Its body seemed to be compressed, and a black steel-like color appeared on its body. It blocked in front of Wang Feng. Bang! The two collided. The small Kuan shark's huge weight was compressed, and it let out a groan. However, it was only pushed back by less than a meter. However, Qin Fujian flew back by more than 10 meters. The Fu Shan pillar even extended and stood upright on the ground. It doesn't feel as strong as Brother Long's fist. The small Kun shark smacked its lips. It didn't seem to understand. Perhaps it had been trained by Long Xie and the others for too long. The small Kun shark already had thick skin. Furthermore, it cultivated dark demonic qi. It seemed like it only had 1,000-year cultivation, but normal 10,000-year soul beasts weren't its match. It was just like how evil soul beasts of the same age were much stronger than soul beasts. The difference was that the small Kun shark wasn't like those evil soul beasts under Wang Feng's guidance. Its spirit wasn't shaken by the dark demonic qi, and its consciousness wasn't destroyed. Speaking of which, it had suffered a lot back then. Qin Fujian immediately jumped up from the ground. He was a little shocked. Brother, what kind of soul beast is this? It's impossible for 1,000-year soul beast to take one of my pillars. What a joke. With his pillar smashing down at such a high speed, even a 10,000-year soul beast with weaker defense would be smashed into mud, let alone a 1,000-year soul beast. He didn't hold back in terms of strength. His strength was 100%. Unless the opponent was a titled Douluo, he wouldn't hold back in the Apex Group tournament. Otherwise, it would be stupid. Silly beast. Wang Feng patted the small Kun shark's head. I heard that someone from your Fu Shan clan created 5 different offensive moves. That flying rain speed earlier should be one of them, right? It reduces the weight of the mountain pillar and allows you to move at high speed. You can finish off your opponent in the shortest time possible. It's the best way to deal with someone weaker than you. You don't even need to use soul skills. To put it simply, this was a move with an extremely high value ratio. It consumed little soul power and was fast. It could preserve one's fighting strength. It was simply too satisfying to use it to kill someone weaker than you. Rua! The small Kun shark roared at Qin Fujian. Its 2 canine teeth looked a little silly because they had shrunk. Qin Fujian's heart skipped a beat. He did think so when he used this move just now. There were 3 rounds in the peak group. If he could enter a few more rounds, even if he didn't get a ranking, he could still make a name for himself. It was always good to compete a few more times. So brother, you think I didn't show you the real thing? Qin Fujian smiled. Since that's the case, I won't stand on ceremony. After speaking, Qin Fujian took a deep breath and sucked in his hand. The Fu Shan pillar flew back into his palm as if it was on autopilot. In an instant, the 7 soul rings on his body flickered one after another. The first, third, and fourth soul rings lit up one after another. The Fu Shan pillar immediately turned from a rock color to a dark black color. It seemed to be changing the color of its eyes again. First soul skill, multiple mountains. Third soul skill, 100 feet. Fourth soul skill, soul power vortex. In the blink of an eye, the soul skill was cast extremely skillfully. It was only for a moment. The release speed of a high-level soul master was many times faster than a low-level soul master. It was hard for others to react. Wang Feng immediately sensed these 3 types. The first 2 types were amplifications, while the latter 2 were restrictions. Restrictions on the opponent. 7th soul skill, martial soul true body. After that, Qin Fujian immediately used his martial soul true body. He disappeared, and the Fu Shan pillar increased from 3 meters to 10 meters. It had a diameter of 1.5 meters. It looked extremely shocking. 5th soul skill, spirit piercing the rainbow. 6th soul skill, total annihilation. A loud and clear cry rang out from the Fu Shan pillar. It leaped into the air, and with the power to split mountains and seas, it descended towards Wang Feng like a flash of lightning. End of chapter. Chapter 1262. His soul skills were unleashed so smoothly that it was hard for others to react to them. This was the explosive power of a high-tier soul master. Or rather, He had his own fighting style and experience after countless battles. It could be seen from the speed at which Qin Fujian unleashed his soul skills. He was extraordinarily strong. In an instant, he had unleashed his full strength and reached an extreme effect. Whether it was the power or the aura of this move, even those with higher soul power than him would find it difficult to resist it. Especially in such an environment. It was already very difficult for him to reach this stage. In midair, it was as if a rainbow had been blasted open. At this point, Wang Feng's eyebrows flashed. In a flash, everything seemed to have dissipated. Boom! A huge force directly shook the stage. The shock wave covered everything. Fortunately, a halo appeared on the surface of the stage, as if it was neutralizing Qin Fujian's huge force. Not many people at the scene saw this scene. There were too many battle scenes. To many people in the audience, this was just one of the hundreds and thousands of battle scenes. Not many people were paying attention. Most people were paying attention because of Wang Feng's extremely handsome appearance. Only a few people were paying attention. It wasn't just because of Wang Feng's appearance. Heavenly King Star Spirit stood beside the Shi Douluo in the front spectators' stand. His gaze shifted slightly. Sister Shi, it's him, right? He seemed to have sensed the change in Heavenly King Star Spirit's gaze. Heavenly King Nan Yuan immediately sensed it. His gaze immediately fell on Qin Fujian. With their strength, they would be able to sense each other's movements clearly. The Shi Douluo nodded slightly but didn't answer. Sister Shi, why do you think so highly of this soul contract master? Heavenly King Nan Yuan looked at the Shi Douluo with interest. Especially after returning from the extreme north, I feel like you're hiding something from us. Some things are not good to know too much, the Shi Douluo said. Are you sure? At my position, don't I have the right to know? Heavenly King Nan Yuan was speechless. Sister Shi, who is this man? He looked exactly the same as the statue. Could it be the real him? Impossible, impossible. How can anyone live for 10,000 years? Heavenly King Nan Yuan shook his head as he spoke. She wasn't tall and looked young. She looked like she was only 17 or 18 years old. She had a childish face and a flat chest. Those who didn't know better would think that this Heavenly King Nan Yuan was an underage girl from some clan. In fact, she was already over 100 years old. You'll know when the time comes. You should pay more attention to the powerhouses who come from the gods' land of inheritance. None of them are easy to deal with, the Shi Douluo said as he glanced at the other seats. They're not simple, but it's hard to see anything in the first 3 rounds. If you want these experts to make a move without an opponent of the same level, you can only watch for fun. Heavenly King Yu shook his head and said, those two from the Hidden Wind Cliff don't even need to make a move. They just need to release a bit of their soul power, and their opponents won't be able to take it. Fortunately, these people knew their limits and didn't intend to harm these soul masters. It's also a form of training. It's also a friendly gesture to us. For you to be able to invite these people, other than your relationship with the Dark Devil Realm, I reckon that they also gave you some face. Shi Douluo nodded in response. Big Sister Shi, look, that man seems to be in danger. Didn't he have 2 other soul-bonded beasts? Oh, he's quite powerful. He actually dodged it so easily. Heavenly King Nanyuan's intermittent voice could be heard from the side. In the distance, Qin Fujian transformed into his martial soul true body and attacked. The attack landed on the stage. However, he didn't relax at all. The Fu Mountain pillar stood in the surroundings. However, he didn't see the figure of that soul charmer. Just now, there was a flash of black light. It seems like that soul-bonded beast used some soul skill and dodged my attack. Soul charmers are indeed difficult to deal with. Qin Fujian sensed his surroundings. He recalled the appearance of that soul-bonded beast. Although it was like a rubber ball when it defended, it had flown in the air. But just now, it had flown up the arena at an average speed, which meant that the soul-bonding beast had the ability to fly. In the sky. The Fu mountain pillar suddenly surged and dodged back by a body's length. Right at this moment, a huge black shadow descended from the sky like a mountain. 100-year soul skill. Skyrocket, 1,000-year soul skill, Kuan Pring spreading wings. The Fu mountain pillar dodged, but the black shadow took advantage of the opportunity to pursue. Its fan-like wings were like sharp blades that slashed towards the Fu mountain pillar. Qin Fujian's heart calmed down. Just now, the other party had used a soul skill and spread its wings to wrap around that soul charmer. Its speed suddenly increased and it dodged his attack. Then, it quietly descended from the sky and launched an offensive soul skill. However, since he had sensed it, the effect of the sneak attack was greatly reduced. With a plan in mind, Qin Fujian didn't hesitate to face the incoming wing attack of the soul-bonded beast. The 10-meter-tall Fu mountain pillar wasn't afraid at all. That soul-bonded beast was less than 4 meters in size. When it flew down from the sky just now, its aura was extremely strong. Its power increased by 20%. But now, it gave Qin Fujian a feeling that he could take it on. Coupled with his martial soul true body state, his aura was also extremely strong. Boom! The two collided. Qin Fujian didn't dodge, but the small Kuan shark was sent flying. Qin Fujian, who was in his martial soul true body state, was unprecedentedly strong after the amplification of his soul skill and the uniqueness of his martial soul. It doesn't seem very powerful, Qin Fujian thought to himself. But right at this moment, the soul-bonded beast used its wings to support itself on the ground and bounced up from the stage, attacking Qin Fujian again. Again? Alright, it's just a 1,000-year soul beast. Can it use such a move twice in a row? While thinking, Qin Fujian's soul power surged like the sea as he used total annihilation again. The Fu mountain pillar shone brightly and slashed towards the small Kuan shark. This slash was much stronger than before. After all, it was a soul skill. The moment the two collided, the Fu mountain pillar only shook a little, and the small Kuan shark was sent flying again. No, it seems to have increased a lot. My total annihilation actually didn't blast this soul-bonded beast out of the stage. Qin Fujian vaguely felt that something was wrong. Especially when he saw the soul-bonded beast flying over, its aura seemed to have increased a little. Its wings were suffused with black light, but its eyes were blood-red. It looked a little terrifying. As the attack came, Qin Fujian didn't have time to think. This soul-bonded beast was extremely fast. After its body changed, be it the timing of its attacks or the speed of its skills, it seemed to have been practiced countless times. Especially when the other party had a commander. It was that soul contractor. Although he didn't make a move, he could observe him better. And this observation was especially crucial after the fourth collision. After the third collision, Qin Fujian felt that the strength of this soul-bonded beast's attacks had increased by at least 50%. If it came a fourth time, he wouldn't be able to take it. He wanted to feint and use his special second soul skill, Fu Mountain Shift, to dodge. This was an extremely special soul skill. Don't underestimate it just because it was his second soul skill. Although it was only his second soul skill, it could stop any attack that was being released and dodge. When Qin Fujian was a mid-tier and low-tier soul master, this skill was a great help to him. When he became a high-level soul master, he would often be able to produce unexpected results in many battles. He had used an entire set of soul skills just now, but he didn't use his second soul skill. This was the reason why. The only troublesome thing was that when this soul skill was used, it would cut off the flow of soul power and cause the body to stiffen for a few milliseconds. But because he had to be in an attacking state when he used it, it was a special stiffening state, so it was very difficult to detect. Basically, even if the enemy knew that he had this move, it would be very difficult for them to detect the timing of this move. Unless they had fought with him hundreds of times. They were extremely familiar with him, so it was easier for them to sense it. Using such a powerful move was naturally extremely crucial. After withdrawing the attack and shifting, the enemy basically wouldn't be able to react. Imagine that an enemy who was attacking you from the front suddenly attacked you with a club. Just as you were about to raise your hand to defend, you realized that the enemy's attacking posture had appeared from the side. It was naturally difficult to detect. Thinking of this, Qin Fujian took a deep breath. He knew that this was extremely important. It was his first time fighting against a soul contractor, so to be honest, he was a little unfamiliar. The other party didn't seem to have brought out any more powerful abilities. For example, did he have other soul-bonded beasts? What was his martial soul? He must be hiding it and saving it to deal with other opponents in the future, right? Qin Fujian sneered in his heart. Unfortunately, which high-level soul master doesn't have a few trump cards? If he holds back too much, it's easy to overturn the situation. Victory and defeat can be decided with a single thought. Unless the difference in strength between us is too great, otherwise, there's no point in keeping a trump card. He didn't think that the difference in strength between him and his opponent was too great. This was because he could vaguely sense that this soul contractor's soul power undulations were very weak. The other party's strength lay in the cooperation between his soul-bonded beast and himself. Qin Fujian had to admit that he was much stronger than him. Otherwise, just the first attack from his martial soul true body would have defeated the other party. Thinking of this, he saw the soul-bonded beast attacking him again. A trace of excitement flashed across Qin Fujian's eyes. A battle between high-level soul masters was often decided in an instant. The feeling of victory and defeat being on the line was very wonderful. The Fu Mountain pillar rumbled and pressed forward with an indomitable aura, as if it was going to use all its strength at this last moment. Anyone who saw this would feel that it was going all out. The Fu Mountain pillar true body with 7 soul rings flashing directly smashed towards the small Kuan shark. Qin Fujian's spiritual power was highly concentrated. The casting point of his second soul skill was extremely crucial. He had to be faster. He couldn't be slower. Instead, he had to activate it the moment he was about to make contact. This required him to cast it in advance. He had to cast it in advance by a few milliseconds. Seeing the wings of the soul-bonded beast coming towards him, Qin Fujian felt as if he had touched the beautiful body of the goddess of victory. Second soul skill, Mountain Pillar Shift. In that instant, his second soul ring flashed slightly and his body stiffened. In the next moment, the crouching mountain pillar seemed to have transformed into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. The small Kuan shark seemed to be a little stunned after missing its attack. Its body almost fell forward. At this moment, the Fu Mountain pillar appeared behind the small Kuan shark. As no one changed their attacking posture, this pillar was about to land. In this short moment, Qin Fujian could even see the soul contractor standing on the soul-bonded beast. Success! Qin Fujian was delighted. From the soul-bonded beast's posture, he knew that the other party wasn't prepared at all. If they were facing each other head-on, he felt that he should be able to see the mistake in the soul-bonded beast's eyes. However, at this moment, all of a sudden, the soul renderer moved. In the next moment, he turned his head and looked at him. This look caused Qin Fujian's entire body to stiffen. He discovered me. This thought flashed through his mind. Before he could savor the shock, Qin Fujian had already thought, so what if he discovered me? It seems like he was the only one who noticed me, but that soul-bonded beast didn't. Immediately after, the other party swung out a huge fist. Seeing this, Qin Fujian was even more stunned. What does he want to do? There are no soul power fluctuations, which means that he didn't use soul power in this punch. Are you kidding me? He wants to take this move of mine with just this? Could it be that he is stronger than his soul-bonded beast? Qin Fujian found it unbelievable. But immediately after, he saw a scene that puzzled him. Just as the soul contractor stretched out his fist, he seemed to have sensed something and hurriedly retracted it. It seems like he realized that his actions are too funny. He wants to take a punch from my martial soul true body with such an ordinary punch. Qin Fujian thought to himself, even if you can sense this soul skill of mine, it's useless. The Fu Mountain pillar suddenly landed. Instantly, Qin Fujian heaved a sigh of relief. He felt as if he had completely grabbed onto the goddess of victory's clothes. However, after the soul contractor retracted his fist, he extended a finger while he was still in a daze. The Fu Mountain pillar landed on that finger. Boom! An intense pain, accompanied by a terrifying strength, exploded on the surface of the pillar. The 10-meter-long Fu Mountain pillar was directly sent flying out of the arena by Wang Feng's finger. Qin Fujian's martial soul true body was immediately removed, and he fell from the arena like a kite with a broken string. Wang Feng shook his head and thought, fortunately, I retracted my fist. Otherwise, this fellow would be crippled even if he didn't die. Now that he had unlocked 2 godly king seals, his physical strength was 2/5 of his original strength. Not to mention a rank 70 soul master, even a titled Douluo might not be able to take a punch from him. Boss, it's all my fault for making you attack. I didn't expect that fellow's soul skill to be so strange. I didn't realize it at all. The little Kuan shark softly said. It's all right. This was meant for you to train. You have to know that any opponent will leave 1 or 2 trump cards for themselves. Your last move increased your strength by 200%. Under normal circumstances, he shouldn't be able to defeat you. Wang Feng said, however, he's not stupid. He knows that he can't defeat you, but he still wants to fight you. Why? That's why he might be bluffing. That's why he purposely acted as if he was going to give it his all. It's because of this that we can't let our guard down. Humans are more complicated than soul beasts. Fighting isn't simple either. The little Kuan shark nodded. Naturally, Wang Feng didn't have to take part in this fight. He didn't command the little Kuan shark either. Instead, he was a bystander and allowed the little Kuan shark to accumulate experience. Whether it was compared to Long Xie or the Qilin Lord, the little Kuan shark was far from enough. Under normal circumstances, Wang Feng wouldn't take part. As he thought until here, Wang Feng walked down from the stage. He walked over to Qin Fujian and called his number. Wait, can I ask what your soul power rank is? Qin Fujian clutched his chest and asked weakly. He couldn't figure out how he was defeated no matter how hard he racked his brains. 1 finger? It's better if you don't know. Wang Feng thought for a moment. Otherwise, it'll be a huge blow to you. After he finished speaking, Wang Feng turned around and left. Qin Fujian twisted his lip. A huge blow? Even if you say you're a titled Dalu, I can't accept it. What blow can it be to me? However, he's so young. Did he start cultivating in his mother's womb? Could it be because he's a soul charmer? He didn't know. Not many people knew either. Sister Shi, this man that you think highly of seems to be quite powerful. On the high platform in front of him, a somewhat startled voice rang out. Chapter 1263. Wang Feng walked down from the stage and looked around. His battle with Qin Fujian wasn't considered long. It was only a few minutes at most, and the battle happened in the blink of an eye. Except for the time spent talking, it was relatively fast. But now, when he looked up, the strange battle waves were still coming from the various stages in the air. Would he fall or be flung out of the arena? The medical institutions of the Federation are still quite powerful. Wang Feng glanced at the healing-type soul masters who were waiting for orders. Although their ranks weren't very high, most of them were around rank 50 or 60. It was enough to treat these people's injuries. The peak group competition had been held for many years, and the various countermeasures were relatively mature. However, Wang Feng could occasionally see some people who were seriously injured and could only hang on to their last breath. In a battle of thousands of people, there would always be a few failures. The strength of a high-level soul master was surprisingly strong, but if they didn't kill on purpose, with the spiritual power of the Douluo heavenly net, no one dared to do anything under their nose. It seems that evil soul master didn't come, Wang Feng thought for a few seconds. The evil soul master who appeared that night was actually a little strange. She could make the father and daughter fall for it without them noticing, frame the people from the Shadow Genesis sect, and collude with the soul demon. She couldn't be a simple person. Could it be that such a big competition made her have scruples? Wang Feng looked at the Douluo heavenly kings on the high platform. He was deep in thought. At this moment, a figure suddenly flashed in front of him and smashed into the ground. Warm blood splattered in all directions. Wang Feng turned around and looked at the injured soul master. There was a claw mark on his chest. Judging from his aura, he was a titled Dalu. His soul power should be at rank 91, and he had just stepped into it. He was about 50 years old and could be considered to be very talented. He's so badly injured. He hit him so hard. Wang Feng frowned slightly and looked at the claw mark. This mark seems to be a dragon claw. Damn, boss, this person has the aura of that brat Di Tian. Long Xie's voice immediately sounded in the soul domain. Di Tian? Wang Feng was stunned. Wasn't that in the Great Star Do Forest? Why would he appear here? This was human society, and he had a special method to temporarily transform into a human. Wasn't he courting death by coming to human society? Wang Feng was lost in thought as he looked in the direction where the man had fallen. As expected, he saw a stalwart man in black standing with his hands behind his back, retracting his claws. It must be him. Long Xie said. He came to human society? But why wasn't he discovered? Wang Feng looked at it for a few seconds and fell silent. A special aura emanated from Di Tian's body. Huyu Hao could only sense that he was a titled Douluo, but it was very difficult to sense the aura of a soul beast. Either he had consumed some sort of treasure that could conceal the aura of a soul beast, or he had been helped by some special method. If it was the latter, then this powerful being was most likely no weaker than the Shi Douluo to be able to escape the detection of the Douluo heavenly kings. Of course, it was also possible that the Douluo heavenly kings had discovered it, but pretended not to see it. But why did Di Tian come to human society? Wang Feng frowned. It was one of the strongest soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest. It had survived its heavenly tribulation for 900,000 years, and it was a soul beast with 900,000 years of cultivation. With its bloodline, there were very few people on the continent who could match it. Furthermore, there were definitely powerful soul demons in the Great Star Do Forest. Why didn't he stay in the Great Star Do Forest? Wang Feng thought for a few seconds, but he couldn't think of a reason. This titled Douluo is only severely injured. He's not dead. With Di Tian's abilities, it would be easy for him to kill him. However, he didn't do that. This doesn't fit his character, Long Xie said. Is he afraid of attracting the attention of the Douluo heavenly kings if he kills someone? Wang Feng didn't think too much about it. Let them come. After all, there were so many people, and the probability of encountering them was very low. After that, Wang Feng looked at the few remaining soul charmers. He scanned the arena carefully, and found 4 soul charmers among the many battles. There were very few of them. 3 soul sages and 1 soul Dalu. Fortunately, their soul-bound beasts were much more powerful than the Amoras. They were all 10,000-year soul beasts. What surprised Wang Feng was that the soul Douluo was Hua Linghai from the inspection department. He was a rank 81 control-type soul Douluo in his 30s. He was very talented. He was a genius nurtured by the inspection department, and he had followed a group of people to the extreme north. It seems that the few people from the inspection department have learned some theories after following me for a period of time. The soul beast that Hua Linghai found is a rare soul beast that is good at both offense and defense, the bloodsteel wolf. Wang Feng looked at him and nodded. It was more difficult for the officials of the Federation to participate in the tournament. This was because the officials had many important matters to attend to, and they might not be free to participate. However, each department would still give them 1 or 2 spots. There weren't many high-level soul masters who were free. They were either elders in their families, teachers in their academies, or officials of the Federation. Therefore, other than Hua Linghai, Wang Feng didn't see anyone else from the inspection department. He was probably the only one participating. It was a pity that other than Hua Linghai, the other 2 soul charmers were defeated in the first round. Wang Feng could tell that these soul charmers had just become soul charmers not long ago. They hadn't adapted to the battle of soul charmers and cooperated with their soul-bound beasts. The other reason was that their opponents were a rank 80 soul Douluo and a titled Dalu. Their luck was worse. Wang Feng returned to the resting room and watched until the end of the first round. It was close to evening now. The setting sun was like blood. This huge Hongyu soul dueling arena was also filled with a faint smell of blood. The soul power undulations that were difficult to dissipate caused the energy in this place to be extremely chaotic. There were more than 2,000 people in the first round, and there were more than 1,000 matches in total. 40% of the matches ended very quickly. 40% of the matches were more warm and belonged to those of equal strength. The remaining 20% ended helplessly because of all kinds of weird fighting method. Wang Feng saw 2 control-type soul sages at the end. The 2 of them fought for a few hours, and in the end, no one won. Wang Feng was dumbfounded by the sight. These 2 soul sages were very interesting. One of them had a green wood vine, while the other had a purple wood vine. These 2 martial souls were more famous and very compatible. They were essentially the same species. However, the green wood vine had a certain healing ability, while the purple wood vine had a certain hallucinogenic ability. In addition, their soul rings were opposite. As a result, neither of them could do anything to the other. Neither of them released their martial soul true bodies, and they used the most basic method to bind the other party. It depended on whose soul power was stronger. However, their soul power ranks were the same. Therefore, it was a draw. In the end, Heavenly King Nan Yuan judged the Purplewood Vine Soul Master to be the winner. The Greenwood Vine Soul Master was unconvinced and said, "Why did he win? He doesn't have soul power, and neither do I. It should be a draw." However, Heavenly King Nan Yuan laughed and said, "There are no draws in the Apex Group tournament. It seems like it's a draw, but that's not the case. Firstly, although the Greenwood Vine and the Purplewood Vine are plant-type martial souls, your Greenwood Vine can suppress his Purplewood Vine. That's why the Purplewood Vine unleashed more soul power. However, both of your soul powers were depleted at the same time. This means that his soul power is stronger than yours. Naturally, he won. Furthermore, you secretly used a special soul tool from the Sun Moon Empire, the milk bottle. It's a soul tool that can store soul power. The Apex Group tournament didn't say that it couldn't be used. However, you used it and you tied with your opponent. This means that your soul power rank is the same as his, but the quality of your soul power is inferior to his. Simply put, your foundation isn't as good as his. Therefore, do you know why you lost?" After he finished speaking, the Greenwood Vine Soul Master's face turned pale. In fact, many Soul Masters didn't believe that Heavenly King Nan Yuan could see the fight so clearly. There were too many. Therefore, many Soul Masters would make some small movement. However, they didn't know that Heavenly King Nan Yuan was experienced. As spectators, he could clearly sense every small movement of these Soul Masters. Even if he didn't see it, he could deduce most of it. At their level, their brains were like high-speed computers. How immense was their spiritual power! Wang Feng found it interesting. 1,000 fights were dazzling. However, when it was divided among the 9 heavenly kings, each person was only responsible for one area. Wang Feng's spiritual power could sense 1/5 of the fight very well. This wasn't easy for them. However, there were always people who thought that Heavenly King Nan Yuan couldn't do it. They thought that without a referee, they would dare to mess around. The summit group competition had been held for so many years, but there were still people who wanted to play trick. It was like the college entrance exams every year. There would always be a few people who wanted to cheat. Other than this, there was an even more special situation. For example, there were those who were defeated by a stare. There were also those who walked down from the stage as soon as they went up. There were also those who were shocked by their opponent's charm and willingly gave up. They were all relatively normal. For example, Feng Qin and Feng Go, who were from the Hidden Wind Cliff. These two were relatively friendly to the Federation. Their opponent was a soul Douluo. Not only did they not hurt him, they even gave him some pointers during the fight. Their opponent benefited a lot. He didn't see anything else for now. Other than Di Tian, Wang Feng didn't see any other transformed soul beasts. As for the other god inheritance grounds, they didn't appear much either. They would probably appear in the later rounds. The first 3 to 4 rounds would eliminate close to half of the opponent. In the 5th to 6th rounds, another half would be eliminated. In every subsequent round, another half would be eliminated. The competition schedule was usually very short. This year, it was slightly longer. The further it went, the more popular the high-level soul masters who stayed would be. Although it couldn't be seen now, many of the audience already had a soul master they were paying attention to. As for why they were paying attention to this, of course, it was because there were peripherals. Simply put, it was gambling. Wang Feng heard it when he was in the resting room. Today is the first round. There are many people betting. Let me tell you, I just saw a silver-haired woman in the F section. She was a celestial being. She didn't go up today, but she will definitely go up tomorrow. Furthermore, with her looks, no matter who her opponent is, she will definitely be very popular. There will definitely be many people betting. There are too many uncertainties in the first few rounds. I think we should forget about it. What about her strength? Is there a titled Douluo? For these young soul masters now, apart from looking at their looks, they also have to look at their abilities. Otherwise, they would at most take a few more glances to satisfy their cravings. Otherwise, they wouldn't place their bets so easily. However, there are indeed many people betting on the few soul charters today. It seems like many soul masters are very interested in soul charters now. Times are changing. Brothers, we have to keep a close eye on the remaining 2 soul renters in the next few rounds. Based on my experience, these 2 people are hiding a lot of wealth. Wang Feng was using his spiritual power to sense the battle on the stage and unintentionally heard it. Damn it, no matter what era it is, these fellows will always exist. Wang Feng was speechless. It was normal for such a situation to occur in such a big competition like the summit group. Oh yes, the silver-haired lady. Wang Feng muttered to himself for a few seconds. He suddenly thought of something and his heart skipped a beat. I seemed to have seen her earlier. Furthermore, it seemed like Di Tian was standing behind the silver-haired woman. Wang Feng didn't see it immediately as they were too far away. She didn't make a move either. Could it be her? Wang Fengxin was astonished. He felt that something wasn't right. She came out of the Great Star Do Forest? What is she doing in the human world? A few words surfaced in Wang Feng's mind. Causing trouble? I hope that's not the case. As he thought about it, a voice suddenly sounded beside his ear. What are you thinking about? Wang Feng was jolted awake. He turned around and realized that it was Zhang Lishuan. Nothing. Wang Feng shook his head. She didn't fight today. It should be tomorrow or the day after. Is it a little troublesome to win? Zhang Lishuan pondered for a moment before asking, I didn't compete in your fight with Qin Fujian today, so I watched it with your disciples. Troublesome? Wang Feng was confused. If not for the fact that I was feeding experience to the little Kuan shark, I would have defeated that fellow. Yes. Zhang Lishuan nodded. I heard that Qin Fujian's last move was one of his trump cards. It's a very rare flicker-type soul skill. Furthermore, it's a flicker-type soul skill that can be used to accumulate offensive power. It's very difficult to deal with. However, I heard that it might fail when it's used. Although he successfully used it at the last moment of your fight, there was a change in his attack afterwards. I think the soul power in his body backfired. That's why he flew backwards. Otherwise, your soul-bonded beast would have been in danger. Why didn't you attack? Wang Feng was enlightened as he watched. It seemed that he had attacked too quickly. That final moment had only happened in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, he had even retracted his fist. The instant Qin Fujian's sword touched him, he had struck out with his finger. Zhang Lishuan might not have been able to see it clearly with her abilities. Ahem, that's not important. It's fine as long as I won. Wang Feng waved his hand. It only means that he's not strong enough. His martial soul is still not bad. Zhang Lishuan nodded slightly and laughed. The families in the Heavenly River have powerful backgrounds. None of them are simple. You might have a chance to meet them. Oh yes, do you want to meet them? They miss you a lot. It's a pity that they weren't strong enough in the fight just now. You were too far away so they couldn't see clearly. At the same time, I would like you to evaluate and guide them in their previous team fight. End of chapter. Chapter 1264. Evaluation and guidance? There's no need for that. Wang Feng smiled and shook his head. Haven't you heard of this saying? A master can show you the way, but you have to depend on yourself. They're performing well, and they don't need much guidance from me. The path of becoming a soul charmer is very wide. You can walk it however you want. They don't need much guidance from me. As for the evaluation, you just have to maintain this momentum. After pausing for a moment, Wang Feng added, however, I'll watch every single one of their matches. Don't worry. Zhang Lishuan didn't force Wang Feng to reject her. I'll go see them after the competition, Wang Feng said. It would only take 10 to 20 days. However, they wouldn't have many chances to meet after that. After the tournament, the Douluo would probably face the Dark Demon Realm and the Soul Demons directly, just like what he said at the opening ceremony. When the time came, the many powerful individuals participating in the tournament would gather and head to various places on the continent to deal with the Soul Demons. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly allow the Soul Demons to continue wreaking havoc on the continent and allow others to sleep soundly. After dealing with this matter, Wang Feng felt that he should go to the God Realm to take a look. As for Huoyu Hao and the rest, they were still young and inexperienced. Wang Feng naturally couldn't follow them. All right. Zhang Lishuan nodded and suddenly said, Will you come back to the academy? Speaking of which, after the tournament, the Shrek Academy will hold the Sea God's Fate Assembly every year. It's also a big event in the academy. Sea God's Fate? Wang Feng felt that these words were familiar. Although he hadn't read the story of the second book, he had heard of these words before. With his intelligence, he could roughly guess what they were. Wang Feng smiled elegantly and politely. There's no need for that. A tinge of disappointment flashed across Zhang Lishuan's eyes. However, she still smiled. That's a pity. Many girls in the academy are drooling over your looks. If you don't go, many girls will be sad. Although she sounded relaxed, Wang Feng could hear it. He could tell that there was something else in her words. If this was 10,000 years ago, Wang Feng might have teased her and said, Will you be one of those sad girls? Then, the other party would have a shy look on their face. But now, my appearance? Wang Feng pretended to be angry. I'm a man with looks, talent, and strength. I've been in the academy for so long, and they're only drooling over my looks? Shouldn't they be attracted by my strength and talent? At this point, Wang Feng flicked his sleeves. Too shallow. It seems that I made the right choice not to go. Zhang Lishuan was stunned when she saw Wang Feng's expression, and she couldn't help but laugh. After laughing, Zhang Lishuan left. Not long after he left, a crisp voice rang out. I didn't expect you to be so good at making girls happy. That girl just now obviously has a good impression of you. The Sea God Fate matchmaking convention is a very famous convention. Even though the intention behind their invitation isn't very obvious, you don't seem to be an idiot. How can you refuse like this? But your rejection is quite ingenious. Judging from her voice, she was probably a 16 or 17-year-old girl. However, his tone was that of an old man. Wang Feng turned around and saw a few Douluo heavenly kings walking over. The one who spoke was Heavenly King Nan Yuan. Wang Feng looked around him. He didn't know when, but everyone else in the resting room had left. There are at least a third of the girls who have a good impression of me in the entire continent. Do I have to be responsible for all of them? Wang Feng said casually. Narcissistic. Heavenly King Nan Yuan burst into laughter. His bright eyes swiveled as he looked at Wang Feng. However, you have the right to be narcissistic. In my opinion, you're just an old cow that doesn't want to eat young grass, right? Wang Feng's expression didn't change, and his tone was calm. I'm 18 this year. Heavenly King Nan Yuan was speechless. Just like the records say, your skin is as thick as a wall. Heavenly King Dong Li laughed. Heavenly King Dong Li came from the Heaven Do political district. Her soul power was at rank 98, and she looked mature and pretty. She was about 30 years old, but she was actually the oldest. She was from the same era as Mu'en. Mu'en was more than 200 years old, and she wasn't far behind. Records? Wang Feng was stunned. In our angel sacred hall there are ancient records. White-clothed Popetiff Wang Feng looks as cold as a god, but he's actually extremely thick-skinned. Heavenly King Yu rubbed his chin as he sized up Wang Feng. Heavenly King Yu came from the angel sacred hall, which was an ancient place. It originated from the Martial Soul Hall 10,000 years ago. The Martial Soul Hall's original duty was to exterminate evil soul masters and inherit the sacred angel martial soul lineage. In essence, it belonged to the inheritance of those gods. However, the Angel Sacred Hall had been passed down for a long time, and it had become one with the Federation. Over the past 10,000 years, many strong people had been born, and they had helped to exterminate many evil soul masters. When the Sun-Moon continent and the Douluo continent collided, there were batches of evil soul masters. It was because of the Angel Sacred Hall that these evil soul masters didn't cause any trouble. Wang Feng's face darkened when he heard that. After a quick guess, he knew that Qian Rinxue must have done this on purpose. Before the War of Gods, his relationship with Bibidon probably made Qian Rinxue unhappy. Especially those two promises, Wang Feng felt like he was hanging on a tightrope. Even Wang Feng didn't know how to deal with it. In the end, he gave the two of them the choice. Later on, the God King descended and there was no specific choice. However, Wang Feng faked his death and forced the two of them to accept it. Then, he fused with the flowing tears to revive. Unfortunately, with Qian Rinxue's pride and his relationship with Bibidon, it was too troublesome. Even if they accepted it, they couldn't calm down. Although he would not show it on his face, he would definitely want to vent the displeasure in his heart. The Angel Sacred Hall was established after Bibidon united the Federation and discussed with Qian Rinxue not long after he was sealed. At first, it was led by Qian Rinxue, and it was passed down by soul masters with angel martial souls. It was probably at that time that he left behind some of his true face that was filled with displeasure and indignation in his heart. Wang Feng guessed that they must have belittled him secretly. Then, it was passed down. Of course, these things couldn't be spread. It would damage his positive image as the white-clothed Popetiff. Wang Feng coughed a few times, and his expression immediately became as calm as a mountain, as if it had nothing to do with him. He didn't know who Heavenly King Dongli was talking about. What if you can't find out? Heavenly King Nan Yuan looked at Wang Feng's unchanged expression and shrugged. How boring. Sister, she is so tight-lipped and won't say a word. We can't find out even if we try. Forget it, let's go. End of chapter. Chapter 1265. Heavenly King Yu cupped his hands at Wang Feng and smiled at him. Then, he turned around and left. The other heavenly kings nodded at Wang Feng before turning to leave. Only the Douluo stayed behind. She was dressed casually now, and didn't look much different from when he met her in the extreme north. However, her aura was completely different. With her strength, she could naturally control her aura as she wished. They've probably guessed it too. Yu said. I understand. Wang Feng nodded. The white-robed Poptif statue was inside the martial spirit palace, so it was impossible for them not to know. Furthermore, the heavenly kings had extremely high statuses, so they knew many secrets and history that the public couldn't possibly know. For example, the creation of the Federation and the changes in Martial Spirit City before the War of Gods. Even though the Bibidan didn't explain it in detail, there were definitely people who could guess it from the side details. There would always be some information left behind. At the end of the timeline, these might just be unofficial history. Hence, the heavenly kings would naturally have some guesses. Furthermore, Yu had returned from the extreme north, so it was impossible for her to not tell him anything. There were too many questions. For example, the invitation letter and token. Since he had given it out, the other heavenly kings would definitely know about it. The Martial Spirit Palace wasn't a place where one person's word was law. The Douluo had to obtain the approval of the other heavenly kings before he could give out such a token and special invitation letter. Of course, with the Douluo's strength and status, the other heavenly kings wouldn't object to any token or invitation letter that he gave out. However, it was impossible to hide it. Your strength seems to have improved greatly from before, the Douluo said. The Douluo said, however, there seems to be some strange people involved in this competition. I'm guessing that they're here for you. You have to be careful. Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. He roughly knew that the Douluo might have discovered Di Tian. However, he didn't know if he could see through him. Why do you think they're here for us? Wang Feng asked. Because you're the creator of soul contracts. The Douluo laughed. After hearing this, Wang Feng knew that the Douluo had guessed that Di Tian was a soul beast. The other heavenly kings might not be able to guess it. The next day, Wang Feng chose a spectator stand for the second round of the summit tournament. First was the youth group competition in the morning. There were several exciting team battles. Wang Feng was also watching with great interest. However, due to the addition of soul tools, their fighting style had become much more complicated than it had been 10,000 years ago. Furthermore, the might of a soul skill had to be more complex and varied. At the same time, the Federation had been conducting research on martial souls. Many new martial spirits that Wang Feng had never seen before appeared before his eyes. They even formed a complete set of fighting styles of various sections. 10,000 years ago, Soul Master teams didn't form any factions. However, Soul Masters were always improving. With the appearance of various powerful martial souls, various styles of fighting began to flourish in the history of Soul Masters. The team that left a deep impression on Wang Feng was a team from Purple Star College in the Heaven Do Political District. It was the academy that had caused trouble for Wang Feng at Shrek Academy. It was a standard 6-to-1 arrangement. They were also a popular team to win the championship. 6-to-1, the literal meaning of this. 6 Soul Masters protecting 1 Soul Master. Just hearing about it made one feel that it was very bizarre. Soul Masters could be a group full of teamwork, but they could also be an individual with charisma. Over the past 10,000 years, countless young genius Soul Masters had created many fighting styles. They had also raised the strength and versatility of Soul Masters to a whole new level. In every era, with the appearance of new martial souls, there would always be some powerful and dazzling martial souls that would create waves and waves in an era, creating a powerful sect. This 6-to-1 came from an extremely powerful martial soul in the history of martial souls in the Federation. Soul Lock. This martial soul had an extremely powerful characteristic: soul power sharing. Simply put, it could share one's soul power with others, and the compatibility was extremely high. Thus, on the basis of this martial soul, there were many fighting styles. The most famous one was this 6-to-1. This was a battle between the top youth teams among the hundreds of millions of people in the Federation. Therefore, the effects of the sects displayed were naturally top-notch. Wang Feng also saw that it was extremely mature. In this team, there was one such soul lock martial soul. 6 assistants, together with an assault type. Their main purpose was to let the 6 assistants go on stage and use all their soul power to replenish this assault-type soul master's full state. At the same time, they used the soul lock martial soul to give the remaining soul power of these 6 assistants to this assault-type soul master. He was already a terrifying monster then. They could watch the show from the side and let this assault-type martial soul, who was like a god descending to the mortal world, fight against 7 by himself. I'm just asking you, are you scared? Back then, Tang San used the fusion technique of 6 people to make Tang San, who was only over rank 40 at that time, forcefully reach rank 70 and reveal his martial soul true body. When dealing with the martial soul palace team at that time, there was actually a shadow of this fighting style. But obviously, it was not as pure and perfect as now. Wang Feng calculated the final strength state of this assault-type soul master. Comparable to a soul Douluo. He could sweep these teams. But do you think he is invincible? No. There was no absolute invincibility among the sections. The 6-to-1 fighting style was very popular back then. All the academies were promoting this style of fighting, causing the youth division competition in those years to almost become a one-on-one competition. But unfortunately, the changes in martial souls advanced with the times. No martial soul fighting style was invincible. At that time, the soul lock martial soul came out less than 100 years ago, and a very special martial soul was born. Life Lock. This martial soul also had an extremely powerful characteristic: shared damage. It seemed that it was not a big deal. But later, in this Life Lock martial soul, the first thing that appeared was an extremely perverted fighting style. Reflect damage style. 6 defense-type soul masters and 1 with a Life Lock martial soul. The defense-type soul masters mainly focused on reflecting damage. Most of their martial souls were beast martial souls that could reflect damage. Their soul rings mainly increased their defense and reflected damage. Then, they used the Life Lock martial soul to link the 7 of them together. They formed the reflect damage style. They did not make any attacks, and there were no blind spots. Any attack that landed on the 6 of them would be shared and endured. The effect was extremely small. But the attacker would suffer from the rebound of damage. The stronger the attack, the stronger the rebound. It was the ultimate single-core formation that specialized in subduing this 6-to-1 lineup. It was a fighting style that was specially developed to deal with this 6-to-1 lineup. P.S. There will be an outbreak at noon tomorrow, around 10 p.m. End of this chapter. Chapter 1266. As for why Wang Feng knew about all this, it was because he happened to see such a team. The positional style that Huoyu Hao used previously was actually quite similar to this counterattack style, but because of the addition of the soul-bonding beast, it had more attack. As a result, Wang Feng felt that it was a good idea to have more attacking method. Although there were soul tools now, they were not very popular in the Federation. Furthermore, soul tools were unstable and could not be controlled as easily as martial souls. There were many people using them, but most of them were used as support. There were also schools that mainly used soul tools, but in reality, that was the case. The main reason was that soul tools consumed a lot of spiritual power. It seemed that auxiliary-type soul masters could also use offensive soul tools, But in reality, how many times could they use them? At most, it would be unexpected. But such a situation did not exist now. Because everyone knew about the existence of soul tools, they would be on guard against them. Therefore, the appearance of soul tools only strengthened the fighting styles of the various sections. For example, the 6 auxiliary type soul masters in 6-1 didn't just watch from the sidelines. They could also take out offensive type soul tools and use them to assist in their attack. This made this school even more difficult to deal with. But soul tools were very difficult to control. In fact, if it was a long-range soul tool, unless there was a spiritual type soul master, it would be easy to miss. If soul tools were used for close combat, they would not be able to do anything. After all, even if they used close combat soul tools, they would only be auxiliary type soul masters. Other than these two schools, Wang Feng also watched another match from another school. It was a very special school, the sacrificial style. This fighting style was much more varied than the previous ones. At the same time, it relied on a special martial soul, Cursed Doll, a rare dark-type martial soul. With a dark-type martial soul, it was very easy to determine that they were evil soul masters at the beginning. This was because their cultivation methods were very strange. For example, at the beginning, this cursed doll needed to be beaten every day in order for its soul power to grow rapidly. Then, the person who beat it would be subjected to a special curse that would add negative characteristic. Generally, according to the type of soul ring, the various negative effects would be adjusted. When this martial soul first appeared, it was too strange. Especially at the stage of children, those who had just awakened this martial soul at the age of 11 or 12 would be beaten up by their parents once they did something wrong. In the end, their parents would suffer. As a result, their parents didn't dare to hit them. Then, those children acted recklessly and caused trouble everywhere. Since they were young, it had become a habit that no one dared to hit them. He was afraid that if he hit them, he would be inexplicably inflicted with negative characteristic. The more you fight, the stronger he gets. Because of this, when such soul masters first appeared, they went astray, and almost became evil soul masters with twisted minds. In the end, the people from the Angel Temple had to step in and beat these evil soul masters back to their original forms before redefining their martial souls. Later on, soul masters who possessed such a martial soul basically returned to the right path and slowly learned to control their own martial souls. Then, he began to study and cultivate Soulless again. It was all history of the past. Now, it had gradually evolved into a martial soul that was strong but not as evil as before. However, it still retained this characteristic. However, even if he didn't beat up the soul master himself, he could still cultivate quickly. And by making use of this characteristic, there was also the sacrificial style. The principle was actually very simple. At least 3 cursed dolls would appear on the battlefield. One had to know that this martial soul had more than one characteristic. When they were on the field, they could use the characteristics of their martial soul to mark and curse 4 to 5 people on the enemy team. Then, they would use their soul rings and sacrifice all their soul power to attach the soul rings of all their soul skills to their opponent. Other than holy-type martial souls, nothing was immune. They would self-destruct at the beginning of the match and then directly leave the stage, greatly weakening the opponent's core members by 3/4. If you directly targeted the cursed dolls from the beginning, then according to the characteristics of their martial souls, you would also receive various negative effects from the curse. Some of the negative statuses were extremely disgusting. For example, absorbing the sunbath mosquito's soul ring would increase one's hormones and make one want to go all out. How could one have the nerve to continue fighting if one wanted to hold up the heavens? Later on, there were people who used this special ability to derive a special profession, aphrodisiac. Therefore, they couldn't fight. It was extremely disgusting. When these sects appeared, they were all popular for a period of time. But to say that they had always been popular, It was the most royal and also the most ancient standard lineup of 2 offensive and defensive, 1 agile and healing, and 2 control. It was a standard 3-core lineup. It was also the most talked about lineup of Soul Master teams because it included all types of Soul Masters. It seemed like the lineup was fixed, but in fact, as the martial soul became stronger and improved, the combination would also change. For example, the cursed dolls from before, once they appeared in such a royal lineup, even if there was only 1 of them, they would be very powerful. The worst was the limit of 1 for 1. With a martial soul like the cursed dolls, if they went all out, they could cripple a person. Of course, that was under the situation where the difference in soul power level was not big. If they could replace one of the opponent's core damage dealers, it would be a profit. However, no matter how good the lineup was, it still depended on the strength and performance of each person in the team. Mid- and low-level Soul Masters advocated small teams. But for high-level Soul Masters, there were usually fewer teams. The reason was very simple. It was because high-level Soul Masters were too strong. For example, an auxiliary-type Soul Master could often enhance dozens of people. Or even more. This was far different from 10,000 years ago. Wang Feng had long known that the Soul Masters of 10,000 years ago were much weaker than the current ones. Therefore, the strength of high-level Soul Masters was not suitable for teams. It was more suitable for large armies. Most of the teams were made up of high-grade Soul Masters, and it was impossible for them to be a 7-man team. Instead, they would be a large team formed by at least 50 people. Teams of this level naturally could not hold a competition because it was too troublesome and complicated. Therefore, on the contrary, individual competitions were often able to showcase the strength of high-level Soul Masters. After watching a few matches in the youth division, Wang Feng felt that it was rather interesting. Although it was not suitable for him to participate in such a level of competition with his current strength, he thought about the collision between the 2 types of fighting styles when Soul Charters became popular in the future. After Soul Charters completely replaced Soul Masters, what kind of ideas would Soul Charters have? It was all worth looking forward to. It was just that would depend on how the future generations thought and developed. After that, it was the summit match in the afternoon. Wang Feng pulled himself together and wanted to see if there was any sign of the silver-haired lady. This was because, according to his guess, this silver-haired lady was very likely the silver dragon in the Great Star Do Forest. Very quickly, Wang Feng saw and found this silver-haired lady. As expected, she really participated in this competition. Furthermore, the cheers were extraordinarily loud. Wang Feng guessed that many people were immediately attracted by the opening of the competition and placed bets crazily. As long as she makes a move, I will be able to sense it through her aura, Wang Fengxin said. This was because as long as she made a move, there would be traces left behind. Unless she used her physical strength. But according to his understanding, the physical strength of the silver dragon was not strong. End of this chapter. Chapter 1267. What she was good at was elemental power. To put it simply, she was a magic-type big shot. If her opponent was really a silver dragon, her injuries should have almost recovered by now. Now that she came to human society, she probably had ulterior motives. He had to be careful. Sure enough, as soon as the silver-haired woman made her move, Wang Feng heard waves of cheers. There were thousands of matches in the stadium. All high-grade Soul Masters had a certain level of fame and reputation, but there was no one who would call out to them so loudly. Wang Feng watched seriously. At the same time, in the arena, the silver-haired woman stood on the stage and looked at her opponent with a little disappointment in her eyes. Her spiritual power was very strong, and she had already noticed that mysterious man yesterday. But even if she noticed him, she didn't know how to approach him and express her intentions. Moreover, He seemed to be a little different from the man in the 5-colored sacred mountain. Their strength was different. She wasn't completely sure. In that case, he could take advantage of this competition. It would be best if he could meet her by chance. After all, if she went to him directly, it would be too obvious and she would be easily seen through. It wasn't good. If she met him directly, it would be much easier to explain. But obviously, with so many people, it was impossible to meet him so quickly. But she had studied this competition. In theory, as long as the two of them kept winning, they would definitely meet. Thinking of this, even if the opponent in front of her was not him, the silver-haired woman was relieved. The rules set by human society were troublesome. Since that's the case, let's see how strong these humans have become after using the soul rings of soul beasts. The silver-haired woman's eyes flashed with silver light. At this moment, the soul master opposite her seemed to be in a daze. After looking for a long time, he suddenly said, "Wait, I admit defeat." A question mark appeared in the silver-haired woman's mind. She was shocked. Did he see through my identity? Impossible. Admit defeat? The silver-haired woman spat out 2 words like the sound of nature. The soul master's face turned red and said, "Yes, I admit defeat. Miss, you are too beautiful. I really can't do it. Let's consider it my loss. Even if I do, I will be distracted." Beautiful? The silver-haired woman was stunned for a long time. Perhaps she hadn't recovered from her shock, and couldn't understand. She thought for a while and suddenly waved her hand. A water mirror appeared in the air. She looked in the mirror for a moment. It does seem pretty. The silver-haired woman looked at herself in the mirror and nodded. She thought to herself, so this is the beauty that humans appreciate? No wonder so many people were confused and disoriented along the way. Wait. The silver-haired woman called out to the soul cultivator who was about to leave. "Miss, is there anything else?" The soul master hurriedly said, "Do you think that your loss is too fake? How about this, you hit me, and I'll pretend to fly out of the ring. It'll be more realistic." He was only a rank 79 soul sage, and he was here to accumulate experience. He didn't really care about winning or losing. The silver-haired woman shook her head and said, "Wait." Hearing this, the soul master was delighted. Could it be that this lady has developed a favorable impression of my actions? Unexpectedly, the silver-haired woman suddenly wiped her face with her hand. In an instant, he saw a scene that terrified him to the core. The originally devastatingly beautiful woman had turned into a green-faced, fanged monster in an instant. Looking at it, it gave people an extremely vicious and ugly feeling. Ghost! The soul master seemed to have suffered a huge blow, and his heart almost jumped out. He subconsciously released his martial soul and soul rings, and all his soul skills were directed at the woman. "This is much better," the silver-haired woman muttered to herself. "Humans seem to care a lot about their appearance. What a strange race. Isn't strength the most important thing?" The soul skills were as bright as light and as hot as magma. It was actually a control-type soul master with a fire martial soul. Martial souls were the most ordinary flames. They weren't very strong, but they weren't weak either. As an orthodox elemental tool soul, there were many types of flames. The temperature of this soul master's fire wasn't very high. However, it had a continuous burning effect. This burning effect burned soul power, and could accelerate the soul master's soul power consumption. The silver-haired woman didn't dodge, and allowed the flames to burn towards her. However, the moment before the various soul skills wrapped in green flames landed on her body, they seemed to stop and turned into the most basic form of flames. Then, they surrounded the silver-haired woman like jumping elves, cheering and jumping, as if they were completely out of her control. Compared to the attacks of those gods, it's so weak that it can't be described with human words, she thought in her heart. Then, the silver-haired woman seemed to have thought of something. Thus, she gently stretched out a finger. Her fingertip, which was as white as glass, seemed to be glowing like jade. She gently touched the flame. The flame immediately boiled and burned as if oil had been poured on it. It turned into a flame dragon that was more than 10 meters long in the sky. It looked extremely shocking. Then, it directly landed on the Soul Master's body and exploded with a huge light that covered everything. In the endless light, only a figure could be seen flying out. Then, a number plate happened to fly accurately into the silver-haired woman's hand. I won. The silver-haired woman's expression was neither sad nor happy. She nodded as if to show that she was satisfied with this battle. But Wang Feng was not satisfied. That stupid Soul Master is too weak. He can't walk when he sees a beauty. Wang Feng was a little speechless. I didn't let her make a move at all. Her finger was similar to mine. It was like hanging the horn of an antelope, and there were no traces. I couldn't see any clues at all. She used her opponent's strength to defeat him. Although she didn't make a move, it's very likely that the silver dragon has such a method. After the silver-haired woman won, waves of cheers erupted in the huge Hongyu Plaza again. After watching the silver-haired woman's battle, Wang Feng looked at the other Soul Masters' battles. He was a little curious, mainly because Wang Feng saw a few sects displaying special technique. For example, the famous Dragon Lightning technique of the Blue Lightning Overlord sect. This technique was paired with 3 extremely powerful moves: the Tempest style, the Absolute Lightning style, and the Lightningless style. The Blue Lightning Overlord sect's heritage was also ancient. In the past 10,000 years they had been in decline. Until the appearance of the Dragon Lightning technique, the Blue Lightning Overlord sect became strong again. The reason for their decline was very simple. With the appearance of more and more powerful martial souls. This powerful martial soul, which was once known as the continent's #1 beast martial soul, couldn't be compared to the new and stronger martial souls in the end. In Wang Feng's words, it was a change of version. They had walked down the altar. Unless it was a mutated martial soul, such as Mu In's mutated radiant holy dragon martial soul, it could hold up the facade. But the true Blue Lightning Overlord Dragon martial soul was indeed not considered strong among the top-tier martial souls. But how rare was a mutated martial soul? It couldn't represent the Blue Lightning Overlord Dragon, a martial soul that had been passed down for 10,000 years. End of chapter. Chapter 1268. Fortunately, the people of the Blue Lightning Tyrant sect were unwilling to give up and forcefully changed the strength of the version. Once the Dragon Thunder technique was released, this martial soul once again ascended to the throne of the top beast martial soul on the continent. The same logic applied to the Clear Sky sect, the 9 Treasures Glazed sect, and so on. In order to change the strength of their martial souls, they created cultivation techniques that were compatible with the martial souls of their sections. This allowed their martial souls to not decline with the tide of time. Some people were curious. What kind of changes could a cultivation technique bring? Wang Feng only observed for a while and knew that the changes were huge. The mysterious heaven technique that Tang San used back then was a sect cultivation technique that Little Three had brought from another world. It was a Taoist cultivation technique that was neutral and peaceful, with a long history. In the later stages of cultivation, the quality of one's soul power would be much stronger than those that only relied on meditation to cultivate. At the same time, one could use all kinds of matching skills. It could strengthen one's body and absorb soul rings that exceeded the limits of a soul master. The further one went, the greater the improvement. The strength of the Dragon Thunder technique lay in its compatibility with the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon. It could strengthen one's soul power and at the same time, strengthen one's physique. It could increase the power of one's soul power. It was also a 1,000-year soul ring soul skill, but its power was at least 20% stronger than others. Most importantly, it could also increase one's cultivation speed. One had to know that the essence of increasing one's cultivation speed was to increase one's innate soul power level. Also, he could use a set of moves. These moves were all very powerful. Even at the high-level soul master level, they were stronger than the soul skills of those tens of thousands of year soul rings. Just these advantages alone were enough to see the strength of this cultivation technique. It was even stronger than the mysterious heaven technique. Of course, the prerequisite was that it had to be compatible with the blue lightning tyrant dragon martial soul. Otherwise, the effects of the cultivation technique wouldn't be able to be unleashed. This was the only disadvantage. The greatest advantage of humans was that they could summarize and study and continuously improve. Cultivation techniques might not be created only by people from Little Three's previous world. In this world, as martial souls developed, it would be created sooner or later. There could be many reasons. For example, the Blue Lightning Tyrant sect's status had declined because of their martial souls, and the seniors in the sect were unwilling to fall just like that. Then, as long as a genius was born at a certain time, it would be created. The appearance of a cultivation method meant that the strength of a soul master would increase by another step. To Wang Feng's surprise, along with the development of mental powers, a sect that focused on mental powers had emerged. It was the idealistic sect. There was also the body sect, which used body parts as their martial soul. Wang Feng didn't know much about the body sect, so he hadn't seen them yet. The idealistic sect came from the Star Luo political district. It used to be a small sect that had fallen on hard times. Although spiritual power was rare, it was much more difficult to cultivate compared to other elements. It was very difficult to become strong. But later on, he did something big. It was a titled Douluo Heavenly King, the Star Spirit Heavenly King. Then, their status would rise and they would become one of the top sects in the Federation. The life of this Star Spirit Heavenly King could also be written into a book. She was able to rise slowly from a small sect, gather many powers around her, and finally become the only spiritual type Douluo Heavenly King in the Federation. Naturally, he was not a simple character. After a while, Wang Feng discovered that the Idealism sect was very special. The special reason was naturally because they might also have a special cultivation method. A cultivation method that specialized in cultivating spiritual power. So far, Wang Feng had only seen Tang San's purple demon eyes, which was a method to cultivate spiritual power. Note that it was a method, not a cultivation method. This kind of cultivation method was special and had requirement. It was different from cultivation method. Cultivation methods could be cultivated anytime and anywhere, but the cultivation method of the purple demon eyes was a kind of eye technique that only cultivated spiritual power. It wasn't a proper cultivation technique. It could not be cultivated anytime and anywhere. It could only be cultivated at the beginning of the day. It was about accumulation over time. For example, the secret of front that Wang Feng cultivated was a kind of orthodox spiritual cultivation method. It was also a secret method to cultivate the soul and primordial spirit. Simply put, this was a secret method of cultivation. However, the idealistic sect also had a special cultivation method. Wang Feng recalled that night when he saw the Star Spirit Heavenly King release his martial soul. He was shocked by the vast spiritual power. It could even fight head-on with the soul demon without any fear. It was just that he was unable to destroy the other party because of his method. Could it be that this cultivation method was created by the Star Spirit Heavenly King himself? Wang Fengxin suddenly thought. If that was the case, then this Star Spirit Heavenly King was definitely a true genius. After watching the competition on the second day, Wang Fengxin was filled with emotions. The changes in the past 10,000 years were still beyond his expectations. On the third day, in the third round of the peak group, after the first two rounds, almost one-third of the tens of thousands of people had been eliminated. After today, half of them would be eliminated. The competition would enter the next stage as a whole. On the third day, there was still no competition between Wang Feng and the silver-haired woman. However, Wang Feng found a very interesting person. A person from the Fantasy Moon sect. The Fantasy Moon sect came from the Fantasy Moon region. Like the Hidden Wind Cliff and the Flame God Mountain, it was a special inheritance ground of gods. The reason why it was not simple was because there were two gods in this place, the Fantasy God and the Moon God. According to what Tang San and the others had said before they left, Hu Laina had inherited the Illusion God and Zhu Zhuqing had inherited the Moon God. Because of this, Zhu Zhuqing had obtained the rare dual god positions of the Wind God and Moon God. Although the Moon God and the Fantasy God were both second-level gods, this was also the only information Wang Feng could get about Hu Laina. Later, there was less information. Therefore, Wang Feng was still very curious about the person from this place. He did not know the name, but this person was a man, but an extremely beautiful man. His appearance was about 70% of Wang Feng's, which was also shocking. It was just that he was a little feminine, but he was indeed a proper man. He was also very strong, at level 99. Looking at this person's martial soul, the Fantasy Moon sect should have other information about Hu Laina. Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. In the end, Hu Laina seemed to have followed Bibidon into the divine realm, but strangely, Wang Feng did not sense that Hu Laina had come over all these years. Although the gods in the divine realm could not descend to the mortal world without special circumstances, if they wanted to come down, they could always find an opportunity. After Little Three inherited the Azura god position and became the enforcer of the divine realm, he used the excuse of checking the stability of the sacred mountain below as an excuse to come down a few times. Of course, it was only a few times. Similarly, if Little Three could do this, he could also give Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing the right and justification to let them come down to the lower realm to take a look. In these 10,000 years, there were only a few decades in the divine realm. Usually, one or two of them would come down every 1 or 2 years. Chapter 1269. If there were too many, it would be too obvious. However, Hu Laina and Wang Feng didn't sense it even once. When the Bibidon came, he didn't mention it either. Of course, these were small matters, and Wang Feng didn't care. Now that he thought about it, he felt that there was a big problem. I'll find a chance to ask. As the inheritance ground of the gods, the illusionary moon region must have been in contact with Hu Laina. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. On the third day of the competition, Huiyu Hao and the others also had a competition. Perhaps they knew that Wang Feng was watching them from the other side, but they fought exceptionally well. It was as if they were handing in an exam paper, and they didn't want to make any mistakes. The people that appeared this time were the ones that Wang Feng had thought of. He replaced Xiao Xiao with He Kaitu. They were Huiyu Hao, Wang Dong, He Kaitu, and Su Sanshi. From the outside, it looked like a team of 4 men. Only 4 people appeared. The youth group competition had a rule that there should be at least 3 people and below 7 people. Normally, there were 7 people. What they used was the complete positional fighting style that Wang Feng had predicted. In fact, even the soul tools had been modified. Hikaita's Amethyst Rhino was the core attack point, and it was paired with various Class 3 to Class 4 stationary soul tools. Wang Dong's Radiant Butterfly Goddess and Flaming Sunflower, the Jade Shell Crystal Beast, the Thorny Tortoise, and Su Sanshi formed a triangular defense. They destroyed their opponents. The saddest thing was that their opponents had been studying their previous playstyle. They had seen the weakness of their previous fighting style, which was that it still lacked a certain amount of offensive power. Their defense seemed strong, but it could be broken as long as one's soul power was far above their rank. He directly used the simple 6-to-1 fighting style, concentrating all of his soul power on one person. They wanted to break through their defense directly. The idea was good, but it was a pity that this was a flaw in their strategy. The result was needless to say. Although this academy wasn't like Purple Star College, which specialized in Six Protect, they still had some research. The auxiliary-type Soul Masters they used barely met the requirement. They also had Soul Masters who had Soul Lock. It was a pity that they broke through Huoyuhao's defense. However, he was beaten into a pulp by the Amethyst Rhino's stationary soul tool, and was slightly better off. It was a victory that surpassed the average level of 25. It was still 4 against 7. After this battle, the reputation of this team of soul charmers from Shrek Academy became even more resounding. As a never-before-seen soul renderer squad, their name was enough to shake the entire federation. Moreover, their trump card, Ma Xiaotao, had not been sent out yet. After watching this match, Wang Feng knew that even the high-level soul charmers weren't famous in the Pinnacle group. However, in the hearts of low to mid-tier soul charters, the strength of soul charters should have been deeply ingrained in their hearts. Just like that, the fourth day arrived. Half of the participants had been eliminated in the summit mat. In the next 2 days, another half would be eliminated. Half of them would be eliminated in each subsequent round, until the champion was decided. There seemed to be a lot of people, but in reality, the competition ended very quickly. Moreover, there was no time to rest, which meant that it was very important to defeat the opponent as quickly as possible. At the beginning of the summit tournament, there was still a break. Each round will last for a day or two. But it was cancelled later. Because on a real battlefield, there wasn't so much time for you to rest. Hence, you had to use the fastest method to defeat the enemy. This wasn't a battle that stopped at a certain point. The meaning of the summit tournament itself contained the meaning of a battle between soul masters. Wang Feng's opponent on the fourth day was a lady. And it was a lady with good looks and a good figure. Wang Feng walked up the stage and summoned the little Kuan shark. Just as he was about to let the little Kuan shark fight, she didn't expect Wang Feng to experience that feeling too. I admit defeat, the lady said with a slightly red face. Wang Feng was stunned. He thought to himself, seems like she was conquered by my looks just like that? Not bad, not bad. I knew it. Even she can encounter such a situation. How can I not encounter it? The little Kuan shark floated in midair, and turned to look at Wang Feng, as if asking, Boss, what should I do? Don't I get any experience? Wang Feng coughed a few times and suggested, do you want to fight with it? The little Kuan shark still needed to fight more human soul masters. Especially these high-level soul masters. The more it fought, the higher its cultivation would be and the more experience it would gain. A soul-bonding beast that didn't experience battle wasn't a qualified soul-bonding beast. No matter how hard it was nurtured, it still had to fight more. The lady looked at the little Kuan shark and thought for a while. She roughly understood what Wang Feng meant. But after a moment she still hesitated. Her beautiful eyes landed on Wang Feng as if she was thinking about something. Wang Feng felt a little strange under the lady's fiery gaze and immediately said, I won't do it. You can fight with my soul-bonding beast and beat it up. If you win, you can enter the next round. If you lose, you can say that it's a practice. It won't be embarrassing. What do you think? The lady burst into laughter and said, I don't want to. I've been paying attention to you from the beginning. You defeated that fool Qin Fujian in one move. It was so fast that I couldn't even feel it. And, your soul-bonding beast isn't simple either. Even if you don't do it, I won't gain much from defeating it. Because my strength can't enter the top 10 at all. I'm here to accumulate experience. If you fight with me, I might be able to comprehend something. But if you fight with it, I won't improve at all. It's a waste of effort. Because your soul-bonding beast isn't strong. You want me to be its cultivation experience, right? I don't want that. Her words were reasonable, and Wang Feng couldn't find anything to refute. Because even if she agreed to the little cowardly Kuan shark, she wouldn't gain anything. At most, she would have a better understanding of soul-bonding beasts. She was a soul Douluo and couldn't enter the top 10 of the peak group competition. Just like before, she was here to accumulate experience. It would only be effective if she fought with a powerful soul master. He didn't expect girls nowadays to be so cunning. Sai Rongrong is still the best. Wang Feng couldn't help but think of Ning Rongrong. At this time, the woman rolled her eyes and smiled sweetly. How about this, you have dinner with me later, and I promise you that I will fight with your soul-bonded beast and be its experience potion. I will feed it, and when it is tired, I will admit defeat. What do you think? What do you think? Yee. What's going on? Are girls nowadays so bold? After all, this was dinner, not breakfast or lunch. There were still hidden hints in this. Okay. Before Wang Feng could answer, the little Kuan shark immediately said to Wang Feng, "Boss, such a good idea. You're earning for free." Bullsh *T. Wang Feng glared at him. This is simply betraying my manhood, isn't it? Is that possible? Forget it. Wang Feng refused. I'm not 18 yet. I'm not an adult yet. It's not good for you to do this, right? Hee. The girl suddenly laughed. Little brother, if you're only 18, I'll twist my head off and let you kick it like a ball. Wang Feng looked at this scene and sighed in his heart. Being too handsome really brings a lot of troubles. Chapter 1270. Senior Sister Zhang, why aren't they fighting yet? Below the spectator stands. Huoyu Hao and the others were like little beasts waiting to be fed as they stared at Wang Feng. This time, they were in a different spot so they could watch from a closer distance. Of course, they couldn't miss their teacher's match. Zhang Lishuan was silent in the face of everyone's questions. Senior sister, what's wrong? Ma Xiaotao seemed to have noticed Zhang Lishuan's silence. Ma Xiaotao's eyes flickered as she stared at Wang Feng, who she hadn't seen in a long time. That girl, Zhang Lishuan thought for a moment, but didn't know how to answer. That woman, I think she looks familiar. Su Sancher suddenly said, Isn't that the big sister from the Drunken Dream Pavilion? She's from the Star Luo government. She's so pretty and strong. She should be the golden bellflower, Shaolin right? Su Sanchi's words stunned everyone. Drunken Dream Pavilion? What kind of place is that? Huoyu Hao asked curiously. I think I've heard Teacher Fan you mention it before. Hikaitu scratched his head and thought for a moment. No, I think I've heard Teacher Zhou Yi mention it before. Oh, let me think. I think she said, if you dare to go to the Drunken Dream Pavilion, I'll let you know what it feels like to have your balls crushed. Everyone was speechless. In an instant, everyone seemed to have understood. Huoyu Hao suddenly realized. Isn't that the brothel from many years ago? So it's that kind of place. Huoyu Hao's face turned red, but his tone was a little disdainful. He felt that he wouldn't go to that kind of place. Cough cough. Little Haozi, the Drunken Dream Pavilion isn't a brothel. Su Sancher reminded him. It's a special organization that grooms female soul masters. It's also the Federation's largest information organization. You can find out a lot of information there. For example, you want to find a soul beast, but you don't know its exact location. You can go there, and they'll tell you the exact location of the soul beast so that you can kill it. They're that powerful? Huoyu Hao was astonished. They know everything? Of course they can't know everything. The Federation won't allow that kind of organization to exist. Su Sancher shook his head and said, The information that the Drunken Dream Pavilion can provide is all news outside of federal politics. For example, there was a missing person notice, information about soul beasts, soul tool recipes, special tools, news or rumors about rare treasures, secrets of certain clans and sects, and so on. There was nothing he didn't know about other than the matters of the Federation. There were many sects behind them. The power structure is very complicated. But it's still very useful. At the very least, many soul masters can still trust it. When Huoyu Hao heard this, he felt that it was very effective. Furthermore, the women in the drunken dream house are all very strong. Their martial souls were also very powerful. They specialized in seduction-type martial souls. This Shaolin Er's martial soul was the golden bellflower, which could increase one's charm. It also had an aphrodisiac effect. But in reality, the women of the drunken dream house, those who hold positions, will not speak kindly to men. Su Sancher said in a low voice, "Women who don't have a position and aren't strong enough are often sent out by the drunken dream house in various ways. In my family, I have a relative whose wife came from the drunken dream pavilion. She was bewitched to the point that her head was spinning. But she didn't cause any big trouble. On the contrary, this relative of mine had a silver lining. After marrying this woman from the drunken dream house, his luck changed. Not only did his soul power break through continuously, but when he went out to search for soul rings, he was even lucky enough to obtain a soul bone. Don't you think it's very strange?" Su Sancher looked at everyone who was in a daze. Everyone except Zhang Lishuan nodded. It was indeed very strange. That's because that woman's martial soul is very beneficial to men. A long time ago, this martial soul was known as a cauldron. I heard that although this martial soul seems very ordinary, it can be very helpful to the opposite sex, from soul power to luck. Su Sancher lowered his voice. Therefore, the women from the drunken dream house have always been very popular. There are often people who beg to marry them, but they can't. This Shaolin is the pavilion master of the drunken dream house in the Star Luo government district. Don't think that she's only rank 80 or so. The number of men who have fallen under her skirt is not too many even if you circle Martial Soul City 10 times. If you marry her, you can save at least 20 years of struggle. Do you know how she won the previous round? A man admitted defeat on the spot and knelt down on one knee, begging for a chance. Su Sancher waved his hand and finished bragging. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the shocked expressions on his friends' faces. Then why didn't she make a move on stage? Wang Dong interrupted. Teacher isn't one of those vulgar men. She's already made a move, Zhang Lishuan said plainly. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Senior sister, you're so knowledgeable. You could tell at a glance, Su Sancher said in admiration. The women from the drunken dream house don't make a move like normal soul masters. They're good at using all kinds of method. Their words and actions can win the favor of men. Unknowingly, they can slowly attract you and make you fall in love with them. Look, that woman is walking towards teacher? She seems to be getting closer and closer. Xiao Xiao suddenly said hurriedly. On the stage, the woman moved closer to him. Has she taken a liking to teacher? Jiang Nanan's heart sank. Teacher's looks are exceptional, and he's very strong. As she said this, Jiang Nanan's voice became softer. She seemed to be searching for a suitable word to express her teacher's strength. However, she couldn't find it. That woman is coveting teacher, Xiao Xiao said firmly, but teacher definitely won't like her. Just as she finished speaking, that woman actually moved closer. Closer and closer. Xiao Zhao's voice became softer and softer. Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brow slightly. She could roughly guess that things weren't as simple as they had imagined. At this moment, there were quite a few people who were watching this scene. An 18-year-old little brother. Your soul charmer is quite cute. I've never seen one like this in all my years. On stage, the woman pretended to size up the small Kuan shark and took a few steps closer. Suddenly, a fragrance wafted over. Wang Feng glanced at the woman. It's a new breed. Naturally, you haven't seen it before. Then why don't you let me see it after dinner tonight? The woman revealed a charming smile. She seemed to be implying something. Are you blind? Can't you see it from here? Wang Feng said. Won't you be able to see it clearly if you fight with it? The woman was stunned. She seemed to be unaccustomed to Wang Feng's sudden lack of response. This man has a strange style, she thought to herself. End of chapter. Chapter 1271. However, she had a lot of experience in dealing with men. How could she give in so easily? The woman naturally took a few steps closer and said coquettishly, "I want my little brother to kiss me, so tell me personally. Sister, are you all right? If you are, hurry up and find those healing-type soul masters to treat you." Wang Feng laughed. "I say, my soul-bonded beast is so powerful, tell you? Who do you think you are? This is my trump card. Why don't you just admit defeat? I don't need you to be an experience potion, it has a strange taste, so my soul-bonded beast won't have a stomachache after drinking it." Woman. Little Kuan Shark. The woman stared at Wang Feng a few times and chuckled. "That won't do, since it's your trump card, I'd better see it." Speaking of this, the woman was about to release her martial soul, but her heart was suddenly shocked. "Wait, I was the one who took the lead just now, so I asked him to do it. Why is it that I'm doing it for free now?" No. The woman broke out in cold sweat. This man seems to be a bit difficult to deal with. Thinking back to this step, the woman suddenly woke up. It seems that her intentions may have been noticed. "That won't do. If you don't agree to have dinner with me, I won't make a move. In that case, I won't ask you to have dinner with me, but you can chat with me after the fight, okay? Otherwise, I'll admit defeat directly." The woman shrugged and decided to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Then she turned and left. "Before I walk down the arena, he will definitely stop me. After this round, his next opponents will all be very strong. I might not have a good chance to train that soul-bonded beast alone," she thought in her heart, as she walked step by step to the edge of the arena. The closer she got to the edge, the faster Shaolin Er's heart beat. "I'm almost there, make a sound? I've already lowered the conditions," she thought anxiously in her heart. Until she reached the edge of the arena, one more step and she would be out of the arena. In the next moment, a voice like the sound of nature sounded. "Wait!" Shaolin was delighted. "Ha, as expected. I knew this man would definitely take the bait." She turned around, only to find that the man was already in front of her. He was approaching him step by step with a faint smile on his face. Her heart was pounding. This man's looks were indeed enough to cause the downfall of a city. His aura was unparalleled. She really didn't know how such a handsome man could exist in this world. She even felt a little inferior. Fortunately, she still had some tricks up her sleeve. No matter how handsome a man was, he would eventually take the bait. She watched as the man walked to her side step by step with a smile on his face. Just as she was about to speak, however, he suddenly realized that the man's hand had reached out to his waist at an incomparably fast speed. With a schwa sound, he took the number plate and then kicked him in the face. Whoosh! With a kick in the face, the woman was sent flying. She only heard a disdainful voice. "If you admit defeat, then hand over your number plate. If you don't hand it over, how can it be considered your loss? How stupid." Shaolin felt like her brain was bleeding. This time, Wang Feng won the match. He won rather easily. Other than moving his lips, there was no battle. Little Kuan Shark was disappointed. "Actually, you don't have to be disappointed. That woman's martial spirit is more troublesome to fight, so it's not suitable for you to fight. You're still young, so it's best that you don't come into contact with those martial spirit. Otherwise, the impact will be great." Wang Feng consoled. "Boss, what impact? What's that human woman's martial spirit?" Little Kuan Shark was ignorant. "Little fledgling." Long Xie sneered mercilessly in the soul domain, using this to show that he seemed to be very experienced. However, Long Xie seemed to have forgotten that he himself was a dragon that was born many years ago. Wang Feng smiled and walked down the stage with Little Kuan Shark. Wang Feng roughly knew who Shaolin was. Although she wasn't targeting him, she was plotting something against him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have acted so pretentiously. According to Wang Feng's guess, it could be those people from the nascent shadow sect who were behind this. Don't worry, you'll have more chances to fight later. Wang Feng patted little Coin Shark's head. Because this little fellow cultivated the dark devil energy, it was more battle-hungry. However, this place didn't have the dark devil energy. Although little Coin Shark's cultivation might not improve, it would gain a lot of battle experience. When it went to the Soul Beast Forest with the dark devil energy, its cultivation would definitely soar. On the other side, look, I knew that teacher wouldn't let us down. Wang Dong laughed and said, that ugly woman was kicked off the stage. Did she think she could seduce teacher? What a joke. She seems to have been tricked. Huoyu Hao said worriedly, Sanshur, do you think Xiao Lin will be angry? Oh wait, do you think she approached teacher just to get information about him? Seduction is just a superficial thing? Su Sanshur looked at Huoyu Hao in surprise. Little rat, you're getting smarter. That's possible. Maybe someone paid a high price to get information about your teacher. Then, the second in charge of the Drunken Dream Pavilion's division made a move himself. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. Then why don't we go and tell teacher? Huoyu Hao said, I don't know if teacher knows about the Drunken Dream Pavilion. Go go go. Xiao Xiao raised her hand and said, we can go and see teacher. He doesn't want to see us now, but we can go and see him, right? That's not good, right? Teacher Wang wants us to focus on the competition. Jiang Nannan said hesitantly. Jiang Nannan, you're so slow. If you think like this, how will you be able to hold on to the boy you like in the future? Wang Dong reprimanded her. You have to take the initiative. But that's teacher Wang. No, it's not a boy I like. Jiang Nannan stammered. It's different. I'm just making an analogy. How did you connect them together? Wang Dong looked at Jiang Nannan and said in surprise, Jiang Nannan, you can't be thinking about teacher, right? I'm not. Jiang Nannan stomped her foot. Enough. Ma Xiaotao glared at Wang Dong. You're so capable. Stop teasing Nannan. Since teacher was able to see through that woman's seduction so easily, he definitely knows her identity. Don't think that teacher is as stupid as you guys. If he tells you to compete properly, then compete properly. After these 3 days, the following teams will become stronger and stronger. Go back and prepare. Ma Xiaotao waved her hand, and everyone lined up to return to their team's lounge. On the other side, I'm not doing this business anymore. This is the first time I've been bullied like this. It's really infuriating. Xiao Lin said coldly to the other girl in the room, this person's identity is special. If you want information about him, you should ask around yourself. My Drunken Dream Pavilion won't do this business anymore. We'll pay you back in full later. End of chapter. Chapter 1272. I didn't expect that even the second in command of the Drunken Dream Pavilion's Star Luo division couldn't succeed. What a pity. The woman smiled. Didn't your Shadow Source sect also suffer under his hands? Xiao Lin said bluntly. As the eldest miss of the Shadow Source sect, you lost face on your first trip to Martial Spirit City. What a pity. It's impossible for you to make soul charters disappear. Not to mention high-grade soul charters, the influence of the Shrek Academy's soul charter team is growing. If nothing unexpected happens, the championship is inevitable. At that time, soul charters will become even more famous. In a few years at most, your Shadow Source sect's business will disappear. At that time, I think your Shadow Source sect should change careers. Xiao Lin words were like jade beads falling to the ground, crisp and moving. However, her words made Ling Shuang's temples throb. Why don't you go into the business of cultivating soul beasts? Xiao Lin sneered. If a soul charter can enter the top 10 in the Pinnacle Division, it proves that soul beasts still have great potential at the high-grade soul master level. At that time, soul charters will become the mainstream of the continent. If you change from hunting soul beasts to cultivating soul beasts, you'll be the first to eat crabs. Maybe your shadow source sect status will rise to another level. Little sister, what do you think of this suggestion? If Wang Feng was here, he would definitely be shocked and praise this woman for her excellent eyesight. It's nothing, Leng Shuang said indifferently. My shadow source sect has hunted soul beasts for thousands of years. Cultivating soul beasts is as difficult as ascending to the heavens even if we don't kill soul beasts. Shaolin shrugged. Then I have no other choice. If you don't do the business of cultivating soul beasts, after this competition, someone will smell the business opportunity and start to take action. There's no lack of sects and forces. At that time, your shadow source sect will become the target of public criticism and sunset is inevitable. If you change careers now, there's still a chance. Leng Shuang was silent. Shadow Source sect isn't the only sect on the continent that relies on hunting soul beasts. Leng Shuang said indifferently. If we can't hunt soul beasts, we'll lose our source of soul bones. No matter how powerful soul charters are, they can change the situation at most, but the business of hunting soul beasts won't stop. Shaolin smiled and didn't answer. Moreover, there are only 2 soul renters in the peak group competition. It's as difficult as ascending to the heavens to get into the top 10. In fact, to a certain extent, Shaolin agreed with the eldest young miss of the Shadow Source sect. Soul bones were simply too tempting. If he didn't kill the soul beasts, it would mean that the soul bones would disappear in the future. Human nature was greedy. Furthermore, the soul bone was so powerful. Even if soul charmers became the mainstream, they would still be able to obtain the soul bone. However, hunting soul beasts might not disappear. It just said that it would drop. What if the Federation intervenes? Shaolin said with a smile. The Federation directly prohibits any sect or power from hunting soul beasts, and violators will be severely punished. Do you want to go against the Federation? Leng Shuang shook her head and turned to leave. Everything in the world is about profit. They would only turn a blind eye to things that were beneficial to the Federation. Soul bones were always very helpful in increasing a soul master's strength. In fact, they were extremely helpful to him. War was going to break out on the continent in the future. Otherwise, the Douluo wouldn't have offered an entire set of soul bones as a reward. Soul bones will never be banned. Even if they are banned, it will only be on the surface. Shaolin looked at her and smiled. I hope so. When the 4th day of the competition ended, the number of participants had decreased by half. They were all spectators. The silver-haired woman didn't compete on the 4th day. Until the 5th day. The pinnacle tournament was slowly entering its climax. In the following days, half of the participants would be eliminated. More than 5,000 people were eliminated by half each time. On the morning of the 5th day, Hu Hao and the others didn't fight. However, Wang Feng still saw a few interesting styles. For example, there was a style that focused on elemental attacks. It was also a relatively ancient and traditional style. There was also the more popular pure control style. 6 control-type soul masters could control their opponents from the beginning to the end. This style also had to be paired with a martial soul that could increase the effects of control. Otherwise, the effects on soul power would be too great, and the disadvantages would be obvious. Although martial souls that could increase the effects of control were rare, there were still some. The more famous ones were the Willow Dew martial soul, the Nano Glue martial soul, and so on. Different martial souls had strong effects on different types of control. For example, the Nano Glue martial soul was a special semi-liquid object. Once it was released, if the opponent was tied up by a spider web or a rope, it would increase the strength of the martial soul. This martial soul could increase the strength of these objects by several times, making it difficult for them to break free. If they were used in a control-type battle, the combination would be perfect. They could truly control their opponent. Styles were complex and varied. Every team had their own specialties. Furthermore, in the fourth day of the competition, half of the 30 or so teams in the youth division had been eliminated. In a week at most, the competition for first and second place would begin. Wang Feng watched with great interest. In the afternoon, the pinnacle tournament began. Wang Feng met his third opponent. It was a male with a rank 79 soul power. He was from the body sect. The body sect was a sect that used various organs as martial souls. It was also one of the strongest sects on the continent. The various martial souls that appeared as organs had always been very special. Some were strong, some were weak. The most famous one was that the body sect had their own cultivation method. It was different from normal soul masters who relied on meditation to cultivate. The body sect placed more emphasis on one's own cultivation. This was because the martial soul was a part of the body. It was not like the martial soul of a beast, which could be attached to the body and increase one's strength. It was also not like the martial soul of a tool, which could be extremely sharp and cold. The martial soul of the body sect was only in the body. The effects were also very different. The body sect was also famous for the secrets of martial souls' evolution and awakening. Simply put, the body sect's special cultivation method could allow the martial soul of a body to undergo a second awakening. It was just that very few people succeeded. However, if they succeeded, the martial soul that underwent a second awakening would be the strongest martial soul in the continent. Wang Feng's opponent from the body sect was not simple. A soul contract master? The man was around 40 years old. He was tall and sturdy. His muscles seemed to be cast from steel. They were very shiny and gave off an explosive feeling. However, no one knew what organ his martial soul was. Wang Feng nodded slightly and sized the man up. That's interesting. I'm from the body sect. However, I haven't undergone a second awakening. The man smiled at Wang Feng in a friendly manner. After he finished speaking, he looked at the small koan shark. He seemed to be very interested. End of chapter. Chapter 1273. The body sect was a special sect. A long time ago, it wasn't included in the Federation. Because it was located in a remote area, the people in the sect were too arrogant. They didn't want to submit to any country or power. The Federation tried to persuade them several times, but to no avail. No matter how strong the sect was, how could it be compared to the Federation? Naturally, they joined the Federation and were under the jurisdiction of the Federation. They were located in the east of the Heaven-Do political district. Now that they were completely assimilated by the Federation, although the people in the sect were still very arrogant, they would still listen to the Federation's orders. For such a competition, they would naturally send a large number of people to participate. There were elite members of the sect, ace members of the sect, and even those at the level of the sect master. This person was obviously just an elite member. But I'm still very strong. The man smiled and said, "My name is Wang Ruhu. As for my martial soul, you'll know after we fight. The competition has started, I won't hold back. I don't know if your soul-bonded beast can take a beating." As soon as he finished speaking, the man's body flickered slowly. His martial soul couldn't be seen, but he rushed towards the small koan shark like a bullet. "Boss, he's so fast!" the small koan shark exclaimed. Without saying a word, he immediately used deep roots to defend himself. Bang! Wang Ruhu threw a powerful punch and sent the small koan shark flying a few meters away. Seems like first gear isn't enough. Wang Ruhu looked at his fist and frowned slightly. Second gear then. After saying that, Wang Ruhu's eyes suddenly turned red. The aura around his body surged and his breathing became slightly rapid. His soul ring flickered. It was unknown what soul skill he used. His speed increased again and rushed towards the small koan shark like a missile. Wang Feng was slightly stunned. If he sensed correctly, that punch should be Wang Ruhu's full strength. Whether it was speed or strength, it was the limit of that soul power level. Ordinary soul masters couldn't break through that limit. In fact, to be able to hit his limit with one punch was already impressive. From the marks on the other party's body, it could be seen that he must have practiced countless times to reach this step. But to be able to exceed the limit like this, it wasn't simple. What is his martial soul? A light flashed in Wang Feng's mind. Wang Ruhu, who was straightforward and used pure strength, was full of violent aesthetics when he moved. With another punch, the small shark was sent flying more than 10 meters away. His body that had been compressed was small and agile. Although he barely managed to defend himself, he was still able to do so. However, it was clear that he still couldn't take it. He was only able to hold on. Third gear. Wang Ruhu seemed to be in disbelief. 1,000-year soul beast actually had the strength to defend against 2 of his punches? With third gear activated, Wang Feng could clearly see Wang Ruhu's pupils dilate. His heartbeat accelerated, and the sound of blood flowing through his body rumbled like a long river. It was extremely shocking. Wang Feng had no doubt that even a rank 81 soul Douluo could be killed by Wang Ruhu with a single punch. His body gave off a steel-like aura that seemed indestructible. Especially when his hands were clenched into fists, it was even more terrifying. Is his martial spirit a kidney? Wang Feng was stunned. As one of the organs of the human body, the kidney plays a very important role. From Wang Ruhu's performance, Wang Feng suspected that his martial spirit should be a kidney. To be precise, it was the adrenal glands. No wonder he couldn't find any clues. After all, that thing was hidden in his body and was very small, so it was impossible to see. The adrenal glands could produce a very special kind of adrenaline, which was very powerful. Simply put, this thing could increase strength, speed, reaction, perception, and so on. It could stimulate a person's potential strength. It could reach an effect that exceeded the normal limit. This was the result of Wang Feng's analysis with the knowledge of his previous life. Otherwise, Wang Ruhu's situation would be too abnormal. Generally speaking, the normal increase in one's upper limit was mostly related to the soul ring skills. The source of power was the power of the soul ring. Soul skills were a special kind of skill formed by the flow of soul power, which was inseparable from the power of the soul ring. Therefore, the essence was the power of the soul ring. But Wang Ruhu's increase was too strange. There was no change. The soul ring flashed, but it only flashed, and there was no sign of an increase. Furthermore, he only saw the soul ring, and not the martial spirit. Then his martial spirit could only be an organ in his body. If he didn't directly use the power of the soul skill to increase his strength, then it could only be the power of the martial spirit itself, such as the martial spirit possession of the beast martial spirit. Wang Ruhu's martial spirit was a body martial spirit. A body martial spirit could greatly increase one's strength in all aspects. Wang Feng could only think of this special adrenaline. If nothing went wrong, Wang Ruhu's soul ring must be related to this thing. It could stimulate one's potential to a greater extent. It was just that normal soul masters or humans couldn't stimulate a large amount of adrenaline, because producing too much of this thing would also kill a person. But Wang Ruhu was different with the support of the soul ring. His body was also very strong. This allowed him to exceed his limit time and time again and activate several gears. Seeing such a novel way to increase one's strength, Wang Feng ignored the silent little Kuan shark that was whimpering from being beaten up. He looked at it seriously. The little Kuan shark's vitality was very strong. Although Wang Ruhu's attack could hurt him, it could only help him increase the strength of his body and accumulate experience. This was what Wang Feng wanted to see. Is there a fourth gear? If he activates the martial spirit and stimulates the adrenaline, his blood flow will be too fast, and Wang Ruhu's body may explode. Wang Feng thought for a while and felt that it was impossible. But to Wang Feng's surprise, Wang Ruhu really activated the fourth gear. After activating the fourth gear, Wang Ruhu's face turned pale, and blood started to flow from his skin. He panted like a cow, and his eyes were red. He looked very scary. His body didn't change at first, but Wang Feng felt like a balloon that had reached its limit and would explode with a light poke. The little Kuan shark also started to show injuries. But after a minute, Wang Ruhu's last punch was a few centimeters away from the little Kuan shark's body, but he fell to the ground powerlessly. I lost. He shook his head, and his voice was very weak. Your soul-bonded beast is too resistant. If it came to the body sect, it would be a natural punching bag. The little Kuan shark. It was a little angry that it was called a punching bag. It spat a mouthful of blood at Wang Ruhu. Sooner or later I'll be able to kill all of you with a sneeze. Wang Feng touched the little Kuan shark's head and took down Wang Ruhu's number tag. He shrugged and said, Your martial spirit is not bad, but that's all. I heard that the body sect has a second awakening. Maybe it can make your martial spirit stronger again. Wang Ruhu smiled bitterly. It's not that easy. The second awakening sounds powerful, but it's not easy to do it. This is because different body spirits have different second awakenings. End of chapter. Chapter 1274. Wang Fengxin said. So there's such a thing. He walked down the stage. Wang Feng continued to look at the Hongyu Soul dueling stage and saw the silver-haired lady walking down. She still didn't make a move in this round. Her opponent was a lady, but it was a pity that she had an elemental beast soul. The silver-haired lady dealt with her effortlessly. Wang Feng estimated that she would have to be at least rank 95 before she could really make a move. I hope I can meet her. On the other hand, Di Tian didn't hold back. Any soul master who met him didn't end up well. Although they didn't die, they were severely injured. Furthermore, he didn't use much strength. The fifth day of the competition passed just like that. Half of the teams were eliminated. Only 2,000 people were left. The sixth day. Huoyu Hao's team was competing today. Strictly speaking, it was the quarterfinals. The 16 teams were split into 2 days and fought 8 rounds in total. This time, Huoyu Hao's team was very unlucky. They met a sacrificial-style team that played dirty. The 2 cursed doll soul masters were around rank 45. They were very strong. At the same time, they were paired with 4 auxiliary-type soul masters and 1 assault-type soul master. They walked the path of 4 protecting 1. It was the mixed and matched style. Logically speaking, the mixed and matched style was a new style that had emerged in recent years. By combining the essence of many styles and matching them, they could unleash a miraculous effect. The 2 cursed dolls could eliminate at least 2 core attackers. Unless the opponent was a pure elemental style, there would only be 1 core attacker left. 4 protecting 1 was much weaker than 7 protecting 1. However, it was still a combination of 4 people's soul power. No matter what, it was still stronger than the remaining core attacker. Wang Feng watched from the start. Huoyu Hao's team sent 5 people for this round. Besides the 4 from before, there was also Xiao Xiao. There was 1 more person. This infuriated their opponent. They felt that they were underestimating them again. As they had already fought so many rounds, they could naturally tell that these people's soul power ranks weren't high. They were far inferior to them. The extra girl was just a support. Even if you wanted 1 more person, you should have an assault type, agility type, or long-range soul master to make up for the damage. In the end, you had a half auxiliary type and half control type girl. It wasn't like they hadn't gone up before. They wanted to beat them with this? And then, the battle began. Wang Feng finally saw something new. If Wang Feng had to name it, he would call it the combined soul beast attack. That's right, it was a joint attack between soul-bonding beasts. The secret lay in Xiao Xiao's flute and Huoyu Hao's spiritual sharing. Using spiritual sharing, Hu Hao shared information about the enemy with the soul beasts that were about to attack together. Then, he would play a special tune from his flute, causing the two soul beasts to resonate to a certain degree. From there, the two soul beasts would attack together. Using the Vajra Dragonhawk and the Scorching Sunflower as a combination attack. The blazing sunflower wrapped around the Diamond Dragon Eagle's body, causing it to give off a special rhythm. Its body exploded out with a scorching hot energy, making it immune to all debuffs and control effect. To be able to move through a group of enemies as if there was no one there. Before the two cursed dolls could use their soul skills to make Wang Dong and the purple gold rhinoceros lose their ability to fight, Hu Hao had the Vajra Dragonhawk wrap itself around the flaming sunflower and attack the four soul masters who were casting their soul skills. The two cursed dolls wanted to target the Vajra Dragonhawk with their curses to prevent it from charging into their formation. However, they discovered that it was useless. Shrek's team won this round at lightning speed. The powerful combination attack between the soul beasts left the audience dumbfounded. It was terrifying and impossible to guard against. Even Wang Feng started to clap after seeing this. This method definitely wasn't something that a single person had thought of. It was most likely something that they'd thought of bit by bit, combining their wisdom. Wang Feng had thought of using a combination attack with soul beasts a long time ago. However, there weren't many places where he could use it. These fellows are truly impressive. Wang Feng revealed a gratified smile as he looked at them. Being able to research to this extent meant that they had a deeper understanding of soul bonding masters. They definitely had a better understanding of each other after he'd left for almost a year. This was especially true for Xiao Xiao, Hu Hao, and Wang Dong. It could be seen from their soul-bonding beasts that they were able to use to attack together. From Hu Hao's team's matches, Wang Feng finally saw what he wanted to see. Every match was beyond Wang Feng's expectations. However, I can understand why Ma Xiaodao hasn't fought yet. After all, her abilities have increased to a ridiculous level after she obtained the Ice Fox. She can be a trump card. However, a golden-haired girl appeared in Wang Feng's mind. Why isn't Jiang Nannan fighting? Could it be that this girl also has some sort of trump card? Wang Feng didn't know much about Jiang Nannan. However, his impression of her was that of a gentle and strong girl. She was also very pretty. However, Wang Feng didn't remember what was so impressive about her. Her martial soul wasn't outstanding. The soul-bonding beast she had was the golden cat eagle from back then. He seemed to be very ordinary and unremarkable. I hope she can surprise me. Wang Feng thought for a moment, then turned his gaze to the vast Hongyu soul fighting arena. Senior Zhang, whose teacher's opponent today. Hu Hao's team walked down from the arena calmly. They had practiced many times to end a match so quickly. This was because the effect of a combined soul-beast attack would be extremely obvious once it was used. Once they left the arena, they hurried to the spectators' stand and looked at the Hongyu soul-fighting arena. The Apex group was about to begin. As for your opponent, his martial soul is a little special. You guys met him just now. Zhang Lishuan thought for a moment. Their opponents had already been decided yesterday. It would be officially announced the next day. Don't tell me it's one of those cursed dolls? Wang Dong felt a chill run down his spine. That martial soul is really perverted. When I was cursed, I felt powerless, like a fish waiting to be slaughtered. There's also a nauseating feeling in my heart. It's like I've eaten something disgusting and moldy. There were other feelings too. I felt disgusted and uncomfortable. I didn't want to fight at all. If not for my strong will, I would have surrendered. Wang Dong's words left the others speechless. The amethyst rhino told me that he felt the same as you. Kaitu laughed bitterly. He still hasn't regained his senses. End of chapter. Chapter 1275. The cursed doll can add many negative effects according to the configuration of its soul rings, such as fear, disgust, palpitations, premonition of death, pain, and so on. Apart from that, there are also negative effects on one's body, such as slowness, stiffness, numbness, stagnation of soul power. All of these effects are added together. Naturally, all of you will regret it. Zhang Lishuan smiled and said, "This is a martial soul that almost became an evil soul master. It's no joke to say that it's disgusting. In every tournament, there will be many soul masters who stir up trouble. It's a pity that teams rarely appear in the Angel Sacred Hall. Otherwise, a soul master with the holy angel martial soul would be able to completely subdue such a martial soul. However, the combined attack of your soul beasts can achieve a similar effect. If Teacher Wang were here, he would probably praise all of you." However, Zhang Lishuan looked at the stage. This time, he'll be facing a soul sage with such a martial soul. He'll be even harder to deal with. What's the difference between a soul sage with such a martial soul? Xiao Xiao asked curiously. Of course there's a difference. A martial soul true body is a fundamental change to any soul master. Zhang Lishuan explained, once the cursed doll activates its martial soul true body, not only will all the effects of its effects increase, but any immunity won't be completely removed. If you meet a soul sage with such a martial soul, your combined soul beast attacks won't be effective. At the same time, a cursed doll with a martial soul true body possesses a strong spiritual impact. Even the holy angel martial soul won't be immune to such a spiritual impact. It directly impacts the gap in one's soul, and increases the success rate of various negative effects. Even a soul master with the holy angel martial soul will lose himself if he's hit by such a spiritual impact. The power of his martial soul will disappear, and he won't be immune to the negative effects of the cursed doll. Spiritual impact? Gap in one's soul? The few of them were confused. Zhang Lishuan saw that they didn't understand and said slowly, "A human soul is very complicated. It's like a mirror. Not only does it constantly reflect the negative emotions left in one's soul from one's actions, but it also keeps them intact. No matter how strong one's soul is, there will be gaps in it. For example, Xiaotao has a martial soul. You want to be recognized by your family. Sanshur is bound by his family. I'm sure all of you know this." Everyone was silent. Do powerful soul masters like Elder Mu and Elder Xian have gaps in their hearts? Huoyu Hao asked suddenly. Zhang Lishuan said slowly, "Yes, basically everyone has one. The longer you live and the stronger you are, the more you have one. On the other hand, those ignorant newborn babies don't have any gaps in their hearts. Their hearts can be considered pure, so why would they be affected by this kind of spiritual impact?" Everyone was secretly amazed when they heard this. Doesn't that mean that a martial soul like the cursed doll can even affect a titled Douluo when it reaches rank 70? Xiao Xiao couldn't help but exclaim, "That's amazing." Xiao Xiao had just finished speaking when a rather rough voice rang out. "Ha ha ha, little girl, why don't you think about it? Although that spirit shock is powerful, he has to have the ability to release it in front of us." Everyone turned around. It was the Taotai Douluo Xianzi. He was munching on a chicken drumstick as he spoke. In the Shrek Academy there were several incredible things. Firstly, the Taotai Douluo Xianzi had an endless supply of chicken drumstick. "Pavilion Master," Zhang Lishuan said hurriedly. The rest immediately greeted him respectfully, "Elder Xian." Only Xiao Xiao stuck out her tongue. She was a little embarrassed. Elder Xian and Elder Mu were specially invited by the Federation to watch. Of course, if they were interested, they could also participate in the competition. However, Elder Mu and Elder Xian had already participated in the summit tournament a few times. "I'm here to praise all of you. You performed well just now." Elder Xian extended his greasy hand and waved it. Back to the previous topic. The cursed doll is indeed very powerful when it reaches rank 70. However, it's a pity that it only has a control-type martial soul. Its abilities are weak. Although there are gaps in our hearts, titled Douluo's spiritual power is very strong. He didn't even have the chance to use it. We discovered it. If he wants to really affect us, his soul power has to be at least rank 95. Otherwise, everything is just empty talk. Xianzi sighed as he spoke until here. However, Lishuan said it very well. The longer one lives, the stronger one is. The bigger the gap in one's heart and the deeper the gap. Humans are young and frivolous. Who knows how many things they will do that they will regret for the rest of their lives. If we keep these things in our hearts for too long, they will become our fatal weakness over time. A few years ago, there was a teacher who suggested that we conduct ideological education classes for soul masters. This is to correct the hearts of the new student. Try not to take any detours. Xianzi sighed as he looked at the figure on the stage. Then in this world, are there no soul masters with pure hearts? Huoyu Hao couldn't help but ask curiously. Xianzi laughed and said, "Yu Hao, do you know where the gap in our hearts comes from? It's desire. Human desire is endless. As long as there's desire, there will be a gap. Even if some desires are passive, and we don't take the initiative to fulfill them. For example, because of my martial soul, I like to eat. Actually, it's not that I'm greedy. It's just that I've cultivated my martial soul for a long time, and it's hard to change. However, this weakness is within my control." Huoyu Hao smiled and said, "That means there's no such soul master." "No, there is." However, Xianzi changed the topic. "In fact, I only know of 2 such people." Everyone was stunned. They all felt that it was unbelievable. "Grandpa Xianzi, are you talking about those newborns?" Xiao Xiao asked cheekily. "Ha ha, of course not." Xianzi laughed. "There are 2. One of them is right in front of you. Look, that's right." Xianzi looked at Heavenly King Douluo and pointed at the Shi Douluo. Shi Douluo, her heart is truly pure and untainted. That's because her martial soul is too strong. You might not have the chance to see her martial soul now, but you will in the future. Besides her martial soul, her personality is also extraordinary. She has already reached a level that we can't reach. She doesn't seem like. Xianzi paused and shook his head as he spoke. Everyone looked at the Shi Douluo in astonishment. They didn't expect the famous Shi Douluo to be so powerful. What about the other one? Wang Dong was curious. The other one is a legendary figure. Xianzi said slowly. All of you should be familiar with him. 9-1 Kai, Wang Feng and the white-clothed Popediff are all him. He is also a peerless figure with a pure and flawless heart. Author's note. And this chapter ends. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.